Good evening, everyone. This is the first meeting of 2022. And I get to
17
have
times.
the gavel for a few minutes. And this is the time where the board elects their officers. I want to, again, talk about the rules, how we operate, and it's very simple. Anyone can nominate anyone else to be chairman. You can self-nominate. A second is not necessary. If more than two are nominated and no one gets the requisite 4 votes, the one who got the least amount of votes would drop out until there would be only 2, and that would require 4 votes to be elected chair. And we would do the same thing for vice chair. The only thing I always like to do, if someone is nominated, I would ask that person, if elected, would they be willing to serve? Because I hate to go through a election and then that person does not want to serve. So, with that, I'm delighted to open the floor for nominations for chair for 2022.
I'll nominate Jerry Mansell.
I have a nomination of Jerry Mansell to be chair. Mr. Mansell, if elected, will you serve?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for chair for 2022? Looking around the room, there aren't any. I will call for the vote. You would need 4 votes. I like your chances. All those in favor of Jerry Mansell to be chair for 2022, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. With your permission, may I conduct the vice chair?
Carry on.
You're going to get the gavel soon.
Get the goodie out of it.
The same rules apply. The only thing I would ask, if anyone is nominated, hope there are, that I would ask, would they willing to serve if in fact they are elected. I will open up the floor for nominations for the office of vice chair.
If she would be so kind, I'd like for Ms. Sams to repeat as vice chairman.
Well, let me ask you this. Ms. Sams, if elected, were you willing to serve as vice chair for another year?
I am.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair? Looking around the room, seeing none. Ms. Sams, I do like your chances. All those in favor of Ms. Edie Sams, again, being vice chair for 2022, please signify by raising your hand. It is unanimous. Congratulations to both. Ms. Sams, you don't have to move.
No. I'll stay right
Mr.
here.
Edgy, you gotta move. And Mr. Mansell, now, there was something about computers, names and computers. They're taking their computers, gotta take your name with you too.
Oh,
And for the record, I don't have a name, I'm just the board attorney.
While we're switching here, I want to thank Mr. Edgy for serving as our board chair for the past 2 years. So, thanks so much.
Thank you, appreciate it, Scott.
Thank you, Marty.
Did you get it?
Oh, you want to get a picture?
Yeah.
He's got all this stuff. It looks like he's going to school.
Had to pass the golf gavel.
I didn't want you to. I didn't want to touch it.
This gavel goes to Jerry.
Shake hands.
Make sure everybody touches it, lick it too.
Thank y'all. It's been my honor to serve as chair for the past 2 years with you guys for sure. And I know we've had a lot of challenges, but y'all been a great board to be the chair for. So I appreciate it, and I'm glad to hand it over to Mr. Mansell and Ms. Sams.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad to get rid of Jerry.
Mark's doing a good job.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome to the cheap seats, brother. Welcome to the cheap seats over here.
Mr. Chairman, that takes you to item 3, and I'll let you
Right.
take over.
Yes, sir. Thank you. If I can remember how to do it. again, if I may take a quick second, Marcus, thank you very much, Mr. Edgy, for the guidance you've provided over the last 2 years. I think you've done an excellent job, especially in the situations that we've been in with the COVID and the leadership you provided with Dr. Spence. Like I said, over the last 2 years have been tremendous with the economy and the things that we've had to face. And I really do appreciate it. I think amongst the whole board, we can't thank you enough for sticking in for 2 years and taking care of us. So thank you to you and your family for the sacrifices and the service that you've provided again. So thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Ransom. Appreciate it. It's an honor.
All right. Well, I'm sorry. Dr. Gary.
Just said thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll jump straight into it. And again, thank y'all for the support for me. And I will definitely give everything I got as usual. And I think we've got a great thing going. And I know a lot of change needs to be made in my opinion. We'll continue to go down the path that Mr. Edgy and Superintendent Spence has provided. And got a great cabinet. I'm looking forward to a good year. And with the help of Ms. Sams as Vice Chairman, I think we'll continue to move forward like we've been doing. So looking forward to it. And again, thank you for your support. So that being said, I guess we will, you said that brings us down to 3. We'll, I guess, review the, sign the Board of Ethics policy and document. I guess that is that online, Ms. Burrow? Yes. Okay. Oh, it's up, I'm sorry. Again, that'll be something that we will, are we going to sign that tonight? Or? Okay. So, any questions on, it's on the board, obviously on your computer as well. Any thoughts or questions? Any changes in that from last year, can I ask?
Mr. Chairman, there aren't any. This, again, a reminder to the board and the public, this came out of a General Assembly. The school boards are required to sign this yearly based on a law that was passed a few years ago. There aren't any changes. It's the same ethics that you signed in the past. No changes.
Okay. Any questions from the board members? Where we're at, or what we got? Okay. I will continue to present that, Ms. Pearl, after the fact. We'll sign executive session. Okay. All right, that'll bring us down to 4 items of information. Dr. Spence.
I'd like to start off tonight by asking Dr. Whitehead to come in and give us a COVID-19 update.
Good evening.
Congratulations on all the changes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say,
Appreciate
and
that.
you probably want to claim that too, so go through. I do have some slides with similar information that we've been reviewing each month related to COVID. I will give the caveat, I've been trying to include the current dates information as it's released at 3 o'clock before our meeting, but today when I logged in, there was a note that there wouldn't be any update today due to a reporting issue at the state. So our data is as of yesterday that we'll be reviewing tonight. So the first slide shows you our community transmission index over since December 21st, looking back at that timeline. And we can see that that has had an increase over those reporting periods. The next is our 7-day rolling average, and our 7-day rolling average as of yesterday was 111.3. I will say that we'll see on the next slide that the cases confirmed yesterday was 54. So that 7-day rolling average will come down somewhat based on the fact that those number of cases confirmed yesterday was a lower number than we had been seeing happen over time. Again, that's a rolling average, and the picture on the left is just blowing up what it looks like just since November through yesterday's data. And through that, you can see they have the yellow line showing, you know, what that average and being able to watch that peak, and you can see where it's kind of made a dip down over the last few days in there. And then the picture on the right shows you historically over time, looking at that. The next slide I thought you may find interesting. Dr. Davis was kind enough to share this earlier this week to show us when they look at where, you know, the variants have emerged and what the trends are in those areas. This shows you the December piece that you see there on the graph is representative of Omicron. And you can see that it had a quick spike up, but it also had a shorter duration time before it started on the downward piece compared to some of the other spikes that we've seen historically happen with the COVID virus. So, again, thought that may be interesting context for you. The next slides show our cases by age. And you can see within each of those age bands where the spikes have happened and come back down within those. I do think it's a good sign that in our older populations, we're continuing to see smaller numbers in our age, which hopefully means that we're doing what we can to protect that vulnerable population, particularly. The next slide is our school-age children cases. And this is as of January 1st, because this is lagging data. We get the data from the previous week. And you can see that we had 36 school-age children, not all Glynn County school students for sure, but that shows you what we've had across our community over that period of time, and then being able to look back and compare that from the time that this started on the graph that we've asked for from the Department of Health. The next slide gives you an update of where we are on the percent of positive tests, those that are testing and those that are going to test, the percentage that are coming out positive, which can be an indicator of your transmission within your community. And then another look on the next slide of the breakdown by age for the last week. And you can see that the highest bands being those age 20 to 29 and 30 to 39. So more of that young adult and into adult age for the highest part of our spike that we're seeing right now. And then the next slide shows you where we are as of this afternoon for Glynn County Schools reports. These are cases that have been reported to us this week. None of the students that we knew about, ahead of time have reported back to school. We have staff that haven't reported back that knew of their symptoms or COVID status prior to coming back. So while this shows you the numbers of where we are, it doesn't necessarily indicate what has been in the building to have an impact on the building. So it's kind of one of those catch-22 pieces of data to look at to see those. So as of this afternoon, we are at 0.8.
That's people who are not in school as of today as a result of having tested positive for COVID. That's what those numbers are.
Yes.
It's not, we're not guessing that they have COVID, we're not thinking they do, they have shown us a positive test.
And a confirmed lab test.
Yes.
So not just a home report or otherwise. Those are tests that we've been able to confirm with DPH. So I wanted to provide those pieces as an update, and then also let you know that I'm sure many have heard that there were some changes to isolation that were announced by the CDC last week to shorten isolation time, which historically has been 10 days if you test positive or have symptoms for COVID and test positive. You would go back to that onset of symptom date or that test date, whichever was earliest, and isolate for 10 days. They have changed that criteria such that if you test positive for COVID, you can go still back to that onset of symptoms or test date if you're asymptomatic. And they have issued modifications that you can isolate for 5 full days, and then you can basically be on modified isolation for the last 5 days of that isolation period. But the caveat to that is that you are supposed to have a mask on for that last 5 days of isolation. And so we have been working through the guidance Mrs. Jordan and I have met with Dr. Spence as well, and just going through what that guidance looks like, so that if we offered that to students, then we would want to present to parents a letter that would indicate that they could return possibly after 5 full days, but they would be doing so with an understanding that their student would have to have a mask on for the final 5 days of their isolation, or else they would just need to remain at home until the 10-day isolation is complete. And so that becomes kind of the hinge point of, if you want them to return early, that would be meeting with the guidelines that we have from CDC, and DPH has asked us to follow that guidance. There's no change to home exposure quarantine, which has been in place, for quite some time. This is only for those that have a confirmed COVID positive test through a lab result, that we would be able to offer that. And so I didn't know if there were specific opinions on being able to offer that reduced isolation to students. With staff, we feel like we would be able to say, you can return with a mask, and that wouldn't be as much of an issue as trying to make sure that students kept that mask on during that final 5 days of isolation.
Do I understand it correctly? They're supposed to also be symptom-free?
They
for
would,
that last 5 days?
right, they would have improved symptoms and certainly no fever for 24 hours, and that's kind of outlined on this as well. No fever for 24 hours without the use of medications to reduce the fever. So they would have to be totally symptom-free, fever-free, and symptoms improved. If they have a fever within that time frame or their symptoms have not improved, they would just continue the 10-day isolation. They would not be able to return.
Okay.
How do you handle extracurricular stuff during that time, the last 5 days? If it's athletics or, it's anything after school, how's that handled? Same way?
Yes. We are supposed to be kind of operating under that. We are allowing the early return, knowing that that's the requirement that they have.
So just to be clear, if you're at baseball practice, you have to wear a mask?
I think that
Because if we're gonna do it, I'm just
Right.
trying to get out, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. But if we're not, then we're not. That's
Right.
kind of my point.
I think that there's an acclimation period, and I think that's different. But I think it's longer for an athlete. So I want to is Coach Waters, can you come in here? Let's get him in here and see if
Coach
he's
Waters.
playing something there.
Do you mind joining us?
I think there's an acclimation period that athletes have to go through after they have COVID. So the question is this: right now we have a 10-day quarantine for COVID cases. So if an athlete now they can come back after 5 days, but then they have to wear a mask for the
Or
the remaining
cheerleader or
5
drama
days.
or whatever it is, not picking on baseball, but just whatever the case might be.
What's going to happen as far as participation goes? That second 5 days when they have to wear a mask, are they going to be able to participate? Are they going to have to participate with a mask on?
I think, no, our policy last year was you had to participate with a mask on, unless it was an outdoor sport. If it was an indoor sport, it was a mask.
So-
Right now, Georgia High School doesn't have any policies,
Mhm.
but I expect that to change Monday.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes in the last few days.
Yes.
Is what has happened. This 5-day thing changed, and
The
now.
state executive committee meets Monday at 9 a.m., so I'm expecting COVID protocols to come out again. But I think all of our sports are indoor right now, so we'd have to go back with masks, but I don't know that masks are safe for wrestling.
So do we say that they have to stay out for 10 days? That's what you're asking?
I'm just saying iron that out because
Right.
if you're starting
Yeah.
preseason baseball workouts,
Right.
Yeah.
like
And
even the
this
middle
is-
schools are doing it. They're doing preseason, just not tryouts, just, whatever, conditioning or whatever you would call it. But if they're in the gym doing weightlifting, are they masked? And then when they go out to the field, they're sitting on the bench together, they're unmasked. I'm just saying iron it out before.
Right.
I don't think we wear them either way, but that's just, I'm just saying that if you say 5-day, interim or whatever, then we need to iron out what the policy is before we just say,
I think what Mike's trying to say is that you're gonna have to wear it for 5 days in school, but then if you go to ball practice or band or cheerleading or whatever else after school, does that mean you take them off, or do we continue the mask the whole?
Yeah, the guidance, the
that
big,
correct?
long
Okay.
guidance
Yeah,
from
sure, I mean, yeah.
DPH says no matter where you are, like even in their home, they're supposed to wear a mask. I mean,
Hey, we're
for
an
the
extension of
5.
School day.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need to be in them.
And this is on the early return now. They've changed it so that they can, instead of being out for a full 10 days, we could offer that they come back after 5 full days, but they have to wear a mask for 5 more days. So instead of being out just the full 10.
Okay. I'm not going to allow a basketball player to play in a basketball game with a mask. I think that's unsafe.
I agree.
I think that's
Especially a
unsafe.
wrestler.
So I think if they can go to practice and wear a mask, but I don't want to see a kid get out there exerting themselves with a mask on.
Right.
We're asking for a lawsuit right there. And I'm fine with
Last
saying they
year, our
can't participate for
policy-
10 days.
I'll go back and double check, but our policy last year was if you're on the bench you have a mask on. If you are competing, mask can come off.
Yeah, but this is different.
This is
that
5
they're
days
letting them
early.
come back early from quarantine as long as they wear a mask.
For 5
Yeah,
days.
but didn't the quarantine rules change up in CDC? It went from 10 days to 5 days, right? So it just went from 10 to 5. It's just.
If they wear a mask.
If they wear a mask for the
Right.
additional 5.
Right.
But it all goes back to like my argument, like, I understand football's outside, but you're this
Yes.
close to each other for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and so basketball's the same way. You wear it on the bench, that's fine, but when you're playing basketball, we've all played. I mean, you're all over each other up and down the court. And so as contagious as this variant is, you know, I don't care what the policy is. Let's just be clear about it before we say, I think we should allow the 5-day, come back with the mask on and let parents know. I think that's fine. But as far as extracurricular, it's not just sports. Anything that
Right.
happens after school, what are we doing?
Right,
That's all.
okay.
And you can report that on Tuesday after you talk to them Monday.
Sure.
On what they,
Yeah, I can-
so we'll have a lot more.
Yeah, Georgia High School, if you get back with
And then
them.
Monday, I can get the
Yeah.
new protocols and we can have it for you Tuesday. Sure.
Okay,
Okay,
cool.
thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Whitehead
Problems, but-
concerning COVID?
No, I just like to, as I always make a statement, the numbers have gone up and the numbers are escalating. The reason I have a mask on is I promised months ago that if it's over 10 at the hospital, I wear a mask, and they're in their 30s. But what I have seen yesterday was the numbers ticking down just a little bit, which was good because it was just steady going up, and
Yeah,
I'd rather go the other way. Hopefully, us getting together and the kids getting together don't turn into an issue within the county. But we're lucky that we're opening up at all when you look at some of the other communities, so. And I don't know what you do besides this, but I'm sure that keeps you so busy.
well,
But
unfortunately,
we appreciate the,
Ms. Jordan has been a huge help with the day-to-day management of it for sure, so, okay.
Has the CDC stated why, if the masks are so effective and numbers are going up, why are we lowering the guidelines?
do you want the real answer? They
I mean, I think I
said-
know I already know the
They
I
answer.
think I know what to do, but.
Yeah, it had nothing, yeah. What I heard was they're trying to get people back to work in match places.
So it's okay to be unsafe
So
just
it's
till you go back to
political,
work, but yet it's.
So we should just do what we want to do and.
My point is,
get
I'm,
the
My
mask on.
interpretation is what
I'm
you
tongue in
just
cheek,
said.
but I just don't understand, if it's as critical as everyone makes it out to be. And I'm not, I lost my stepdad, so I'm not making light of the situation. I do know that it's serious, but again, I think it comes back to each individual person making that decision. But I just don't understand that if we're starting again to prepare, they're saying, oh my gosh, here it comes, get ready. But yet then we turn around and we lower the isolation period. That just, it makes no sense.
I mean, I will admit, I was surprised, so.
I mean, you're telling me that we're fixing to have another run of protocols and we're gonna be in trouble and all this kind of stuff, but yet you can come back 5 days earlier instead of staying out for 10 days. But it all comes back to, they're trying to work the system, so. Anyway, I guess I'm of the standpoint we just kind of wait and see. I mean, that's all
Well,
we can
and
do.
then and that's good. We turn in our report tomorrow, and our procedure says that if we're above a certain percentage on Friday, then we'll move to yellow or move to red. Now, moving to yellow, if we're above 1% tomorrow, school system wide, our procedure says we're going to wear masks, and I'm prepared to carry that out, unless you guys tell me differently here tonight. But our procedure also says above a certain percent, we may close schools. I'm not planning on closing schools unless I don't have enough teachers to cover classrooms. I don't even say teachers, secretaries, whatever we have to put in classrooms. We're going to try to stay open as long as we can. And so that's going to dictate whether or not we close. But our procedures, our protocols say at a certain percentage, we mandate masks. And that is at 1%, and we're pretty close to that. So is there a chance we hit it tomorrow? Yeah. Do I think we will? Maybe not. But there is a chance. And I think we're getting close to there and coming down. I think it's going to be quick. But I want to let you guys know that, because I'm prepared to make that move if that's what I need to do. And I'm saying that unless you tell me differently.
I think we as a board have backed the plan that we've had this entire time. I think the community knows that we back the plan. And when the numbers do go up, go down, we follow that plan.
And
And I think the public also know we're making decisions and choices based on the current information we have and data we have at hand. We cannot make choices without the current data. So once the data is before us, then we go back and reevaluate.
I still, want to rehash everything right here tonight, but, all this is happening, this spike is happening while we weren't in school, right? I mean, pretty much.
That is correct.
I mean, everybody was at Walmart, everybody saw what happened over the holidays. So it's gonna happen whether or not we're in school or not, with masks or not. And so my opinion continues to be that we go back, we stay in green. I mean, we change policies all the time, we change procedures, we change plans because things change.
Right.
CDC just changed it on the fly. We've been following their advice and they just changed it on the fly. So if we go to 1% tomorrow, do I think we mandate masks? No, I don't think we do. If it goes to 5%, I don't know. I don't think you mandate them either way. I think you keep your child home if they're sick. And I think when you come back for 5 days, I don't think they should have to wear a mask if they're asymptomatic. But we're following these guidelines, and that's fine, but they're arbitrarily changing them anyway. So my opinion is we do what we think is best, for our system and quit following them. If they're going to change it based on what I think they're changing it on. The spike has happened and already started to come back down with us not in school. And so I don't think us being, the schools are still some of the safest, cleanest, best places to be. But that's just one person's opinion. That hadn't changed.
I agree with you, Mike, and I think my point is we've been doing this for 2 years, and that's coming and going, and we've learned more with the CDC changing after 2 years. You get to a point where I think you get all this data, and when it first started the past 2 years, we haven't known what's going to happen. So we try to listen to the CDC and DPH and figure it out. And just with the information I've read, and educated myself on, is the mask doesn't really doesn't stop this Omicron variant because it's, whatever. I'm not going to preach about it. I'm with Mike. I don't think we should mask. I think if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. And if they go home, they get quarantined, they get tested, I guess that's up to you guys, but I'm not, I think it should be a personal choice at this point. Vaccines are available for everyone over 5, so if a parent or a student has the ability to get a vaccination. So if the vaccines work, and that's what makes everybody less vulnerable to go to the hospital or whatever else, then it shouldn't matter, because the people that aren't going to get vaccinated aren't going to get vaccinated. At this point, they've had 2 years, they're not going to get vaccinated. So I would suggest that we, as a board, look at some point, the country's got to move on. We've got to get past this virus. If not, we'll keep kicking this can for 10 years down the road. Here it is, here's this new variant, and this new thing. It's, at some point, we've got to move on. But not take the obligation, if someone wants to wear a mask, they should be able to wear a mask. I'm not taking that away from you. But if people don't want to wear a mask, that's just my opinion. And that's where, if this comes to a vote, I would recommend that with Mr. Halsey. So that's just my opinion. It's one person.
You'll collect data tomorrow? Or
We will collect data and we will post around 3:30. And we collect data, like I watched it tick up today. It is live data. Our principals and our nurses are putting it in and it's live. And they're making sure that they have a test result. But what I'm saying to you guys is, if we hit the number to be in the yellow, I'm going to follow through with our protocols unless y'all tell me differently tonight.
I think we should stick with the protocol that we have in place, looking at the data, taking everything in consideration.
But what's going to happen, y'all, is you're going to wear masks next week, right? And it is already coming down. So people that are pro-mask, which is fine, I don't care what side you're on, say, look, masks work. So I said this last time, and it's been 2 years now, like Mr. Edge said, but honestly, I'm at the point where if we go to yellow, I'm personally probably not going to send my kids in a mask, and we'll just see what happens. But I think it's doing more harm than good sometimes. I don't think it works. If you look in the community, there's a small percentage of people still wearing masks. I think, without polling the community, I think a vast majority of people feel like we're talking about. We've got to get past it. We've got to get over it. Everybody was out doing their own thing. I saw very few masks, throughout the holidays. And why are we punishing kids to come back to school? That's what we're doing. I don't want to bring everybody back to the board meetings. I think we're past all that. I hope we are. But my opinion hadn't changed. And so, again, I just think you can make the numbers how you make them look. they're gonna come back down and gonna say, look, everything's fine. We wore masks and we probably should stay in them, is what people are gonna start saying. I just think it's not a good representation of how the overall community feels. We're gonna make our 13,000 kids wear masks when they haven't worn them the last month. And the spike's going up, it's coming back down. Just like it has. We've got 2 years of data. You go boop, boop. So, anyway.
For the most part, my understanding is variant, and John, I know you see the worst and everybody that comes in there, but the variant from everybody, I've known people that have had this, you know, and it's like some aches and pains, but it's nothing like Delta was. I mean, Delta was bad. I mean, I think that's what we gotta do as a board, is like, if it's something that's serious and it's like people are showing up in the hospitals, kids are like really getting close, I mean, that, to me, that would weigh heavier on me making a decision like mask or give everybody an N95 mask, which actually the only mask that's supposed to be work, or there's a couple of them, but these cloth masks aren't doing anything, but to me, making kids more sick. Again, that's my opinion, but with this variant, I just don't see it, I don't see it being as beneficial to keeping kids safe and other than just a normal cold or seasonal. That's just, again, in my opinion. I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
I'd recommend that you stay with the protocol as far as tomorrow. If we want to change it, we'll change it Tuesday. That's when we're going to vote anyway. Is that okay?
You can vote tonight.
I mean, I know you can, but unless you
So
want to vote
see
on
what's
something.
going on, what's going to happen before.
I mean, let's look at the data, and we want to change it or up it, or we can vote right now if you want to bring it up. But you're voting based on something that we don't know yet. And look, I mean, for the future, obviously.
Well,
You know,
I think we should wait on the data to be collected and presented to us and make a wise choice based on our protocol when we meet on Tuesday.
yes or no?
I'm gonna follow what we said we were gonna do. I'm just saying, if you guys want me to do something different, now's the time to make it happen.
Or Tuesday?
Well, Tuesday, but I'm gonna follow through
That's
for
what I
Monday.
said. That's what I said.
Okay, all right.
I know when we came back to school at the beginning of the year, we had, in the plan, it had said Friday evaluations, and we decided, based on what was going on, to look at it daily. And we did make a couple of changes on a Tuesday. I think it's worth looking at it daily again right now. It is a little bit uncertain about how we come back. I do agree with Mike. We've all seen what is going on in the community. I do think, based on what I've read, this is going to be an even shorter span than Delta if we operate like other communities where it's already passed through. I'm hoping it's that way. I've also read it's more mild. It's more in the upper respiratory area and less in the lungs, so we're not needing as much ventilator treatment. But I just think, kind of along with Jerry and Hank, that let's hold on to this plan just to see how this coming back to school goes, and look at it daily and potentially make changes based on what we're seeing. We've seen a little dip, but it may go back up. I don't know. I think that's a good.
What's the incubation period of this variant? If that's what, I don't know how, I haven't seen numbers on who's getting what. Like, of these people that have tested positive, what variant is, or they can't even tell. I mean, I'm not convinced they can, but, you know, what are the percentages based on the numbers we have right now? Do we know that?
The last that I had on it, we were about 75-25, with 25% being Omicron, and that was last week.
And so,
How do they know, John? Do you?
They do a sequencing.
That's way past what I've learned.
I'm with you. I mean,
Yeah.
it just says, you know, do you positive or
That's right.
negative? I
They,
mean,
they pick a sample set and go back and do like DNA sequencing or viral sequencing backward on it and determine what variant it is at that point. So
You have to
it's,
enroll it and compare it, and how they do that is
yeah.
just,
So that's definitely usually lagging information.
so
Because
we
it's
don't
not like
know
you test right now, you
to
know which
Mike's
one it
point,
is.
Or Mike's question, we don't know what the incubation period is for this particular variant. Is it the same?
I guess what I'm saying, everybody that tests positive this week, they didn't get it at school yesterday.
Right.
Or today, what's today? Yesterday. And that was the problem before. See, you know, everybody's sick. Well, they didn't get it yesterday. You know, is it 24 hours? Is it 36 hours? I don't know what the answer is. But I don't think it's short. But it's going to be real convenient for people to go, look, we started back school and the spike's happening. And I'm tired of people making the numbers how they want it. The numbers are what they are, and so.
I think that we have to do the best we can on following the science of the people who know what they're doing.
Oh, sorry.
Even being in the medical field and seeing what's going on, what they study and what they say, sometimes can be iffy. When they came out with the 5-day like they did, they presented that to me horribly. I mean, they didn't say, hey, research has indicated this is what we've done, this is where we're going. No.
And we're just blindly following it. Okay, we're not.
We have a problem already with agreeing on how we want to do it, and then you want to throw out that, and you are the speaker. Good grief. Anyway, that's a bit annoying. But what I have heard, and I don't know it to be true, the infection days that you can spread it are less, which is good if that's true. So there's like a 2-day window that. You have it, you could spread it only in those 2 days versus what it was, which was a week.
It was a 9-day window before, like in the original variants. You were contagious up to 9 days.
Yeah, and
So-
that's
So if it's only 2
two.
days, you can spread it, and we're keeping masks on for additional 5 days, there's 3 days to play with right there, guys.
That's my thing. That's why I say follow what the CDC says now, because it's going to continue to evolve, and we really don't know. And that's one thing we know for sure is we really don't know. So
That's true. We really don't know.
what I can tell you is the ICUs last time were jam-packed. There were 4 versus now we're back to 2. Well, we're up to 3 again. But we haven't got back to 4. And that's the most critical patients. The hospital's still full, but I'm not seeing as much bad outcomes as we did before. And going to the hospital is a bad outcome to begin with, but,
So it sounds like the direction or the directive is what you said, follow the protocol for tomorrow, and we want to change it, we'll change it Tuesday.
Any other questions for Dr. Whitehead, the COVID?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Dr. White.
I'm going to bring in Miss Miller and Dr. Green. Talk about PBIS and the STAR program.
So just looking at PBIS and giving a general overview, we were asked to give just a little synopsis of PBIS and then a review of the STAR program that we used to have in Glynn County. So just to start off reviewing PBIS, as you can see, the Georgia Code back in July 1st, I'm not going to read all this, so don't be scared of that, but back in 2000, each Board of Education had to adopt something to improve the student learning environment. So the next slide, you can see. So local boards are encouraged to implement PBIS and RTI programs and initiatives in their schools, and particularly in high-need schools. And so that's what we did here in Glynn County. We adopted PBIS, and then we also have the RTI program, which is now MTSS, that the state requires that we have in our schools. So those are the 2 things we have going in our building. So if you'll forward to the next one. Another part of that code states that the local Board of Education shall develop a system of progressive discipline. So those 2 words, progressive discipline, something that I want you to remember, because we have to have progressive discipline in place before we can initiate a complaint, if you'll read the rest of that code section. So in other words, before you can suspend a child or expel a child or discipline a child in a negative way, you have to, is everything okay? You have to be able to show that you have a progressive plan in place for those children, which is PBIS in our
For
system.
anything?
No.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm asking. I mean, because
It's certain grades too.
It's pre-K through
Gotcha.
3rd grade. You have to have something in place so that to be able to suspend them more than 5 days. Okay.
Okay.
So, in the next slide. So PBIS is not really something we do for kids. PBIS is a framework that we have in place so that we have that progressive discipline system in place. And it supports not only academic, social, emotional, and behavior for all kids in our schools. And so the next slide you can see that this is the discipline data, and this is just state-reported offenses. So if you look at the right-hand side at the 2 green columns, the 0 column, that is the percentage of kids at each school that have 0 discipline issues. So you can see that all of our elementary schools are above that 90% range, and then our middle and high schools are all above the 80% range. The majority of the discipline concerns that we're seeing right now are coming from a small amount of children, and I think y'all probably talked about that at past meetings, but it's not the majority of our kids causing major discipline problems. And our schools aren't just in complete disarray. It's a small amount of children that are causing the concerns. So that's where we want to put our focus right now. Of course, we'll move ahead how you all want to, but the STAR program was one of those programs that we had in place in the past that helped with provide structure, I guess, and some intervention for some of those kids in a different type of manner than being proactive. It was more of a punitive type measure for those kids in place of out-of-school suspension or in-school suspension. So with that, if you'll forward to the next slide. So Pbis in our schools here in Glynn County, it just provides a common language for the school to use, provides clear expectations, and also schools earn 5 extra points on their STAR climate ratings when they have Pbis or some type of progressive system in place. And then more than 1,400 schools in Georgia have been trained and use Pbis as their structure and as their framework. So in digging into this, part of what we see the issue is of not necessarily Pbis not working. Pbis is working for the kids it's supposed to work for. It's working for those 80% of our kids. The part we need to focus on is what are we going to do to provide interventions and support for that small amount of kids that are causing those problems. And as part of that, we've looked at our discipline matrix, and we have embedded some stiffer consequences and come up with some a variety of and professional learning for our administrators. We've done additional professional learnings for them so that they understand that we do need to be holding kids accountable for their actions, and that compassion over compliance, we need to move past that and move to accountability and compliance. So that's kind of where we are at this point. And then,
well, I appreciate you saying that, but I think that I don't want you to say that just because you think it's what I want or somebody else wants. I mean, but clearly to me, from what I hear, it's not. Something's not working. I personally could do without Pbis tomorrow. I think that you have to have something. We've had discipline policies since school's been around, right? I mean, we have spent a lot of money printing manuals to send home and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, Ricky Ritz and I used to have this conversation all the time. Is that you have a matrix and that's fine, but how are we ensuring that our principals and assistant principals are all I know you've got human, I won't call it error, but you've got human interaction, human intervention, and so. But how do you make sure that a principal is looking at that matrix or an AP is looking at that matrix, and they're all pretty much on the same page with the first offense, this offense is blank, and there's some wiggle room there, but it seems like, I mean, some of the issues that I've heard about in the last year have been like, in my opinion, when we were in school, it would have been a major issue, and now it's go to in-school suspension for the rest of the day, or whatever. And
well,
so,
I think you're going to see some of that change a little bit,
but my problem
especially
is
over the past 2 months.
But my
or
problem is,
month
too,
and
we
a half.
shouldn't have to get to this point. That's been my issue for the 17 years I've been on the board. Why does it have to get to us saying we need to make changes for us to make changes? Y'all bring to us stuff and want to spend money on this, that, and the other, but we're talking about discipline and teachers being scared to go to work and not being heard and not being followed up with. And so that's where I have the issue. It's like, fine, just identify the problems and fix them before we have to hear about them and come to this, It's great that we have the plans in place. Clearly something's not working, and that's just my opinion. Those 20% of kids, or however many you're talking about, is still a lot. Like I saw one high school, like I think it's Brunswick High. I mean, 80% are doing well, but 20% is a lot of kids at that high school. I think that are having behavior issues. And so what are we doing to make sure that the 80%, and John talks about this all the time, that they're in an environment because they want to be there and they want to learn, and there are distractions that shouldn't be there. You know, and you're talking about getting extra points, and I don't care if we get extra points on CCRP. I don't care. You know, it's fine. We're not going to fire a bunch of principals because they missed 3 points on that. I don't think. That's not my goal. My goal is to identify what the issues are and address them, whether we have a couple rough years or not. I think if you ever heard of us look at that board and go, you know, that CCRPI is terrible, we got to fire those principals. That's never come out of any of our mouths that I can remember. Y'all may talk about it internally, but we've never said that. Identify what the issues are and how do we fix them. And so I want to make sure all the principals hear me, you know, when I tell them that. We want you to address the issues. I don't care if you have a couple rough months, a rough semester. What are you going to do the next semester to fix it before I have to bring it up? And so that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
But
And I've said I'm not a PBIS fan at all. I really don't like it. But we have to have something, and then when you've got 20 kids in there and you got one acting out and you follow PBIS and you go, your very first intervention is, oh, are you angry? Yeah, okay. So the other students don't get addressed because the teacher can't because they're stuck with that one. That's what he was talking about, I say all the time. And that to me is not an effective system at all. And that's PBIS. I just think it's horrid, but that's me. And you cannot address the kids that are going to actually change the world are the ones that are not going to be taught as well because of the other one that's being babied, in my opinion, how I call it. And that annoys me immensely. It always has. So I won't say any more about it, but I'm not a PBS fan either.
Well, I think we've definitely tried to put some things in place to, I don't know, up the rigor a little bit on the behavior matrix to make sure we're holding kids accountable for their actions when it happens in the classroom. And to support our teachers. I mean, that was a big cry that we heard not too long ago. And so that's one thing that we've really tried to revisit and make some changes to that matrix and provide professional learning to our principals so that, and our assistant principals. We have a lot of new assistant principals in our district. So we're just trying to be able to make sure they understand that a slap on the hand is not
But the matrix
appropriate
but
for
if the
most
matrix
part.
is there and you have some leeway and the matrix is there, then
The matrix is the roadmap.
Yes.
I mean, you're
We made
right.
that
So
clear for
somebody's running into a tree, you know, instead of following the roadmap. You know, they're, I mean, when you're cussing a teacher up and down, using the F word and everything else, that is not the initial. And if we need to get involved in making a motion to change that policy or change what that roadmap is, then that's fine. And I realize this is 17 years coming out, and you guys are brand new, and I understand that, but in your positions anyway. But you've been around a long time, and so I think you've seen it. But you just can't act that way.
No,
You know, it's not fair to all the other kids or the teachers or anybody else that's trying to learn.
Yeah.
If our graduation rate dips, but we're addressing the needs of the kids that want to be there, fine. That's where I am with it. It all changed when we had to have 100% of the kids graduate. When No Child Left Behind was such a huge push, we started systems. We had cheating scandals all across the state. We had one here. People were cooking the books. And that's what this is pushing. You're cooking your discipline numbers to make them look good so you get 3 extra points. And not everybody's doing it, and I know some issues happen, but it's a little bit more widespread, and I like to see it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think we have to remember too that we didn't get here overnight,
That's true.
and it's going to take time to make changes and to make systematic changes, especially. But I think we're on the right path to making that now.
And we
So.
do, I mean, realistically speaking, we do have some benefits to PBIS from a school-wide perspective. PBIS lays down the framework and expectations for movement in the hallways. I mean, there's so much more than just the behavior management system. When it comes to PBIS, it definitely celebrates students who consistently do behave well and do what they're supposed to do. But I agree with you on the flip side of that. We did incorporate the teeth that we needed, and we did specify to principals, to leaders in schools, that there's zero tolerance for disrespect and some of the behaviors that we were seeing. Dr. Spence was adamant about making sure that principals and leaders in our buildings follow that new roadmap.
Yeah,
and
we're,
we
and I'm
even
not.
spelled out what needs to be a charge, like what goes to the juvenile court for a
Right.
complaint. Like it was very specific on this is the infraction, and here is what we say should happen. Now, there's some flexibility within that, whether it's 3 to 5 days OSS, but it still was clear that the minimum expectation is that we're not tolerating
Mhm.
nothing happening.
Zero tolerance.
For
And
some of those
support on
things that,
staff.
yeah.
Mhm.
Hypothetical, say PBS goes away amongst this board, what would you do at that point? Is it a state requirement, or what could we come up as a district with a, say, take the good parts of PBIS and what y'all want to do as far as get a little more zero tolerance with the discipline and maybe addressing the concerns? Is there something you could build? I mean, and put in place? I mean, I'm just asking that.
You could definitely do something on your own if you wanted to. You just have to have a framework in place that is a progressive plan,
Right.
which starts off and gives students different tiers so that, 80% of your population is in tier 1, and then tier 2, you've got, 15% of your population may have few behavior problems here, there, but you're working with them. They may have a check-in, check-out with a mentor every day in the building, where they may have a check sheet that they're carrying around that their teachers are initialing. They may be self-assessing themselves if they're older. Yeah, I did good in this class, bad, and then they meet with their mentor in the afternoon to go through it. Those are good things of PBIS, and that's that tiered approach. So, but if that stuff isn't working and we've got to move to that next tier, then that's when the more really intensive and punitive type measures
And
can be
whatever comprehensive
introduced.
strategies you utilize, they just have to be research-based. Like somewhere on the World Wide
Yeah.
Web, it needs to say that it's
Research-based.
evidence-based.
I'm just wondering if PBIS, maybe the administrators, the principals, assistant principals, whoever's behind the discipline in whatever school, whether it be a high school, middle school, elementary, understands that dropping the F-bomb on a teacher should escalate this progressiveness up to this.
That don't have
this-
anything to do with PBIS.
Right,
That shoots way past PBIS,
Right.
and that was the problem.
right.
Okay, we're not even talking PBIS when that happens, and therein was the problem. And we have addressed that.
Okay, and
They
that
are
was
very
my
clear
question.
that that
Like,
doesn't have anything
I'm
to do
just
with
wondering if that
PBIS.
PBIS gave an administrator like, well, we should follow this PBIS. In other words, there's so many different
Right.
ways to follow, because I know when Pbis came up with the matrix and developing that matrix probably 5 years, 6 years ago, I remember sitting down with him, probably 5, because I've been on the board 6, but, I just remember seeing where the discipline, you gotta apply the right discipline, right punishment for the right discipline issue.
That's right.
Mhm.
And that's the problem we were having prior to that, is we were saying, okay, well, you do this, say you bring a gun, and this happens, well, you bring a knife, this, I mean, it was just all this different stuff, but that's where the framework of that, came into play. But
Yeah, yeah.
I guess my main question was, if PBIS went away, is this something we're locked into, which I don't think we are, and if we were to do away with it, I'm just not saying we will, but say we did, is it something that we would develop as a school system, our own, or is there,
We'd have to have something that's research-based.
there has to be a framework?
Yeah, that was in that law.
Yeah.
Are we paying anybody anything for PBIS right now? So is it more of a philosophy, and that's just our
It's just a
program, we have it?
philosophy.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think
For
the
me,
state pays for it. I think they pay for any resources.
And there have definitely been some schools who've received grant funds and training from the state in the past, in the most recent years. I
Mhm.
know Jane Macon was one for sure.
for me, it doesn't matter really what we call it. Like you said, we need to have a plan. But when it disrupts the learning, I just feel like it's got to be addressed. And more so than in the classroom, out of the classroom. Like, that disruption needs to be removed. Teachers can't teach, students can't learn, and when stuff like that goes on, it's just examples to the students that are in there too. If they see children getting away with a certain level of behavior, then they're gonna, some students might try to get away with it as well. So it's just perpetuating the growth of behavior issues. So, I don't know where you call it or how it fits into the framework, but I feel like it just needs to be something that's dealt with when it's disrupting the education. And that teachers need to feel supported by the administrators or whoever is the point person for kind of routing that out of the classroom and into another environment to take care of. And that may or may not be part of what y'all have in place right now, but I feel like that's the important part for me.
Yeah. It definitely has been a focus of our conversations in principals'
sure.
meetings and assistant principals' meetings.
As well as teacher capacity, because we do believe that some teachers are ill-equipped to deal with some of the behaviors that they see as well, especially with our students with disabilities.
I see. Well, and that, I guess that's another level of support too, is training, mentoring these teachers, whether they're new teachers or in a different environment where they're seeing more of this than maybe classrooms that they've been in before. I think that's all kind of an all-encompassing support for them is good.
I'd like to see the, to have an executive summary of the top 10% of the school systems in Georgia and what they use. That
Okay.
would be similar to us, not,
Okay.
public schools.
That's 10% in behavior,
Mm-hmm.
like worst behaved schools, better, I mean, like
Yes,
the worst 10% schools in the state?
No, just compare, I think you're
the
just saying.
top 10%, what do they
Compared to
do for
us.
discipline? Are they
With the best
PBIS?
behavior. With the best
The top
behavior.
10% in what area?
Best behavior, yes, I got you.
That last bullet, that last bullet says more than 1,400.
That's almost all the schools in the state.
Right.
Well, when the state says you've got to do this and we recommend PBIS, where do you go? That's why I ask who's getting paid.
Right.
So somebody's getting money out of this thing. So that's my question. Somebody at the state, maybe it's not us, maybe the state's paying for
We
it,
can
but you're
find out
paying,
who's
you're
not
paying for
using
it.
it, which would be
So,
a
yeah,
lot easier.
who's not using
And then
PBIS
we can
like
see
that,
what those
because
schools look like.
Right.
Let's
if
do
they
that.
say you
Yeah,
can,
that's fine.
we want you to do this, but we recommend PBIS, then we're all gonna go, okay, we all do it. And so,
But they started off by putting, I gave you a lot of, the only reason I did this at Glynn Academy is because I got CCRP accolades.
right.
When they quit doing it, I quit. I mean, I'm just being honest, I didn't do it. So.
Well, it's
Now
gotta
they
start
give you the
early too,
point.
because they
Yeah.
learn, by the time you get middle school and high school, I'm not saying it's a lost cause, however, it's gotta start earlier.
This
Well,
is
I
more
think you can
foundation.
see that in the data, that it does work better in elementary schools where,
Which is why the law is around pre-K3. I mean,
Yeah.
essentially, the law is for pre-K3.
Not to beat a dead horse or anything, but I think we've all heard, and I'm sure y'all have heard, that teachers, aren't feeling supported when they send a student out of the classroom to the office or wherever, and then within a certain amount of time, that teacher or that student comes back to that same classroom. Still disruptive, and in my limited knowledge, it just feels like, well, if Andy goes to the office and he comes right back, doesn't look like there was any consequences. Now, I'm thinking I can act just the same way.
And the other third of your kids see it too. Oh, yeah,
Right.
exactly. Not
That
just
is a
teachers.
leadership problem within that school.
And I want to know, what are we doing for that 20%? Because I feel like that's just historically is correct. I mean, we all went to school, we knew there was only a handful of students that caused the disruption. What are we doing for those 20%
Yeah.
to try to get them back
Are
to,
we redirecting them to think positive and do better?
I think there does need to be some major consequences.
Well, we've definitely seen a huge increase in tribunal requests, and we've definitely seen a huge increase in the number of OSS days as well as ISS days. So there's been, people are following the new matrix. So when we get to our data in a month, I definitely think that you will see that there have been way more consequences associated with the behaviors that were huge problems in the fall.
I'm with Mike here, that if we have a better school environment setting, yes, we may not have a graduation rate at this high, but what we're hearing in the community is, oh, these students, they can come out and they don't know how to talk to somebody. They don't know how to, reason with a boss or take instructions. That's what we're doing. That's what we're teaching in discipline. Hey, this is the boss. Somebody right out of high school come to my business, and I interviewed somebody the other day. It seemed like they were the rudest person in the world. And I'm sure that person was very nice, but I feel like setting a good discipline role, what's expected in school is very similar to what's expected in the business world and in a job. So let's prepare these folks for not only college, but also jobs.
We agree.
And I figure you do, but, like you said, it didn't take overnight to get to this point,
Yeah.
but
Well, but we do hope it within the next few months, and I'm sure Dr. Spence agrees that we hope to see some positive changes and some teachers talking different language than they were talking when they felt unsupported. We hope that teachers are seeing the tide turn and they're feeling supported. And if they're not, it's like Dr. Spence said, then we need to look at that school a little bit more closely so that we can make
Right.
changes.
You know, when we understand too, there's always classroom management stuff that you need to continue to teach, whether it be a first-year teacher like Edie said, or a 20-year veteran, that you can't write up everybody for everything. You have to at some point. So I know there's a balance. I mean, you know the teachers that send somebody to the office for everything, and that's not necessarily right either. But I feel like I'm glad that we're getting more strict. But the reason I brought up the other thing that we're going to talk about is because, you know, ISS and OSS aren't what they used to be. They don't really matter, y'all. Send me home for 5 days, right? I get to make up my work. You know, I get to do everything. I get to take tests 4 times. Whereas the kid, and this is, I hate to say this, I can't help it because I'm a father and a board member, but, you know, when you have kids that are there trying to work hard, you know, they're out for 10 days for COVID and get a test thrown on them the day they come back and make a 70 on it, but the kid that's out of school for OSS gets to make up all their work and come back and have more all the time they need. This system is not fair. You know, it penalizes the kid that wants to learn. And so being sent home when we were in school meant zeros, right? Meant 3 unexcused absences and zeros the whole time. And you might have to repeat. But we do everything we can, and we should, to help the bottom students. Mr. McDowell, how long have you been on the school board? So one thing you and I've always agreed on is that we do the least for the middle and top performing students, I feel like. And that's an issue. It's been an issue for us. And so, you know, we still have to make sure that those kids that we're sending home, it's really a punishment for them. So how do you ensure that? And that's kind of why I want to talk about the other thing.
So the STAR program, it's interesting, and I put this up just so you all can see that it was dissolved in 2020 as a corporation. The people that were running it, Lisa Stansel, I think, and a couple of other people actually retired and moved back to Texas where it originated. You can go to the next slide. So there are currently only 2 programs active, and they actually purchase their rights or purchase ownership from that particular organization to run it. Major Cooper's in Crisp, and then Major Dempsey's in Colquitt County. Spoke to him actually today. He is a 1 staff member organization. They do parent opt-in. If it's OSS, ISS days, the parent can actually request to just send the kid over to the middle school to do the program with them. Tribunal placement can occur for the program, and then it can be court-ordered. It starts with ages 5, and then it goes up to, he says that they typically don't put 9th graders in unless there is some type of extenuating circumstance, but they typically go up to 8th grade. He just said that they hadn't had success with high school students making the transformation, and then the whole haircut thing, they try to stay true to the original requirements for the program. If you're a male, you have to get the STAR haircut, and it's just a lot of parents that will not push their kids to get that haircut, and so they end up not participating in the program. In Crisp County, they have 3 members that run the program. It's pretty large, 140 plus kids cycled through last year, or year before last, because COVID was a major issue last year with the participation, but it's parent opt-in in lieu of suspension. And so you can see a typical day. It starts at 5:30, and they do some PT type stuff, as well as personal hygiene in the morning, motivational speaking in the morning, and then they do tutoring. It's still over there in program info. And then they do some tutoring at the end of the day, 4 to 6 o'clock. So it's a pretty lengthy day for the student, but there's still 2 active. The last 2 active programs are Colquitt and Crisp County in the state of Georgia. I was able to see that there are some other active programs throughout the country, but as well as for Georgia, those are the 2 programs.
Did you compare the discipline of these 2 by chance?
I wasn't able to actually get Colquitt to call me back to see if it was actually active, because somebody said Savannah was active, and when I spoke to an administrator in Savannah, they actually finished their last cohort of kids in 2020. So when they retired, Savannah actually retired the program.
I thought when we had it here, it was just high schoolers. I don't know that we did
Middle school.
elementary.
It was elementary too. It
And
was,
I think we
it was
started
third.
with the 4th and 5th grade too.
Yeah.
I don't remember going that young with
It
it,
was mainly a middle school program.
which I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't really like the idea of extending it to elementary school. I think there are other ways to, as long as we stop the sending them back to the class with a lollipop, I think there are other ways to get to elementary school students without,
Yes.
all PBIS. There are some negative discipline that you can impart to, but, middle school's tough, everybody knows that's some of your toughest years, but this is what I'm talking about, so, I don't know if we had an opt-in back then or not, if it was mandatory, it was
No, we
opt-in.
couldn't you couldn't mandate it then either. The parents have to agree to do it.
Well, and if we do that, I don't mind if you opt in, if there's some positive part of that, if it's extra credit or for whatever. But I think if you opt out and choose a suspension, it should have more teeth to it. And I don't know how that looks or how that works, but who's going to go to a program where we have to do all this if you can just go home for 5 days and make up your work
That's how.
with
it
your
was.
mask on?
Yeah, that's how it was because I was at the middle school when we stopped using STAR, and that's how it was. The parents had to agree.
And that's fine, but again, if the option is just to kind of coast, then nobody's gonna
So
opt
whether
in.
it's stars or anything else, something tangible that is an option. In other words, if you opt out, then you go home for 5 days, like Mike's saying, you get all your homework, you get to come back and turn in. I would choose that option all day long as a student and as a parent of probably a student, right?
That's the
Of
problem.
the students that you're having issues with anyway.
That's the
So-
problem,
so-
is the students are making a decision.
Yeah, so what can we
In some
do
houses.
as a system to have the other option be either, you can opt out, but you go home for 3 days or 5 days or OSS, and you get zeros.
When
And
did that
then you-
stop?
I don't think I think that's a law.
Yeah, well, see, that's the same problem we
It's
had
a
when we
lot
used to do
I
the
think that's a law.
absences. If you had 5 unexcused absences in a semester,
Right.
you failed. And then somebody challenged that in court. It wasn't in Georgia, but it was somewhere. And so we had to make that change. It was frustrating to me. If you can't come to school, it's 10 unexcused, not excused absences, 10 unexcused a year. You're only there 180. You can't make it that.
We used to could keep folks from getting a driver's license if they missed
Right, I
30
remember
days,
that.
and then
Right.
Georgia changed that law too, and we can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
That was when attendance really got bad in high school.
the government's not helping us here, because people call them and complain, quote unquote voters. But I'm not concerned with that, I'm concerned with the teachers and the other kids who want to be there and work and learn. But,
And
so
I
you're
will
saying
say,
that we can't do anything? Is that the answer?
Okay, if you want to say what can we do without what can we force on people? Really, we can't even force alternative schools on someone, because we say you are suspended from this school for this many days, or you can attend alternative school. Okay, so that's, the only thing the school system can actually force someone to do is say, you cannot come to this school anymore. That's the only thing we can do without the parent agreeing. Now, we can have an alternative program, we can have the STAR program, we can have the Chex Mix program, whatever program we want to make, the parent's going to have to agree to it in lieu of suspension.
How many students agreed to go to alternative school instead of going home?
Most of them do.
Most of them agree to go.
We've had, I would say 95% if we assign to
So
alternative
with
school,
us
they
giving
go.
them an option to enroll in such a program such as STAR to help them improve their behavior, hoping for positive outcome, if they look at the whole picture,
So you're saying you guys want to look at something between home suspension and alternative school? I'm fine with that, I understand that costs money, and it's something that we agree, I know.
You really
But
just say that.
well, no, this is not
It's
money.
CARES Act money.
Well, no, it is not, you cannot use this for CARES Act
We
money. and
can,
it's
we'll
also
move
an-
something else around, that's what we
Right, I don't know that we can, this is personnel we're talking about here now. That's a whole nother animal.
I understand.
You're talking about, and personnel gets expensive. By the way, one of the ladies on the Chris County picture worked here. The lady, she worked here whenever I was at James Lincoln. So anyway, I'm fine with finding something in between home suspension and alternative school. I'm fine with that, and something that could work between the both of it. Maybe not STAR, we can do our own thing.
Well, it wouldn't be able to be STAR just because we can't purchase
Right.
rights to use the name.
Sure.
But we can come up with something.
We can come up with something. I'm sure somebody's, Mike specifically asked about STAR.
I did, but
Yeah.
if it's obsolete, it's obsolete.
I'm
But I'm
sure
looking for a solution
Right.
that doesn't come from me, comes from the experts in the room
No.
that, I mean, why if you go to in-school suspension, why do you sit there in front of a computer and just do your little work? I mean, if I were principal, I'd have the cleanest, godforsaken campus that there is with my in-school suspension kids. But I'm sure that's probably against the law too, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. In high school, you have to go wipe the tables down after lunch. I mean, things like that, but you just can't, oh gosh,
Just
get,
ask 3 people, I'm sure we could probably coerce one of them to come to the land.
Well, I do know just from our GSBA conference that we went to, there are districts in the state that are doing innovative things in this area. It might not just be related to like the place between suspension and an alternative school, but I think there's a lot that we can look at other districts to see what they're doing, how they're finding it's working. I've got one district in particular in mind after attending a session there that I'd love to share the information about. And some of it is a little bit proactive too, and even with younger kids, if they have the propensity to act out in class, there's actually a facility that the parents opt in to send their children to with the hopes that they get a better foundation and they grow into, the type of student that isn't prone to acting out and causing discipline issues. I think there's just a whole lot that you can look at. So without like picking particular programs right now, just be open to researching what's out there and what's working.
And we also had, just today, Ms. Haywood facilitates and she communicates with the juvenile court system a lot. And today we had a meeting with them and they even made us aware of some things that they can offer us. So we're really working with the SROs and juvenile court and the school system, trying to come up with ways to help students, to help this 10% of kids in our school system that are experiencing crisis.
Right.
I mean, because there's always a reason why the misbehavior's there, and we just have to figure out why.
I know alternative school looks drastically different. I did have a chance to walk it at the end of last year when I started, and then now that Mr. Haywood's over there, he's put some things in place and he's very relational to the point where he's able to reach a lot of those kids. Investing in the alternative school and possibly even if kids get placed there, looking at that as a place to really try to change and address behaviors and teach, and attack it there could possibly be an option as well. It already exists, right? Our current infrastructure is you come over there, you're on a computer, you do your time, and then you go. But if we invested in trying to make that a place where we try to transform behaviors and put some more resources there, it's an option. A part of their day could be something STAR like.
yes, I don't want to mislead you, so I brought up STAR because that's what I was familiar with, but I just want a solution.
Okay.
Whatever y'all want to come up with, that is punitive but supportive at the same time. I mean, I'm happy with that. I'm not asking it for everybody to be sent to juvenile detention, but because I know you have to support. If you're really interested in changing the behavior, there's got to be some positive support, like what Terrence is doing. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I can see him doing that. But we're spending money on other programs. I think this is somewhere we need to invest in.
Okay.
And for me personally too, I mean, just for the administrators to know, and I think for the people that have talked about it, they seem to have the same opinion. We're more interested in the true data than we are glossed over data. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
All right, I want to move on to Hanover research update. Dr. White, if you want to join us.
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it.
And just a brief update really with Hanover. We didn't want to not have it on the agenda, so you felt like, well, why did we even bring it up before if it wasn't important enough to bring back? But we have definitely been reviewing the comments and the concerns and the feedback. And so, although I was the person talking about it, this has been an ongoing conversation, so that's why the three of us are here. But we're actually going to take and review what the requests are as far as internal review, take a look then at what Hanover would be able to offer that would be in addition to those things that we could do internally, to include timelines, like how long would it take to get accomplished internally versus having, expert analysts from outside take a look at it, and what resources they would have access to that we wouldn't, to be able to make those evaluations. And then also to get you samples of the specific type of work we would have them do. I can certainly share over like the work that Wayne County has done, but their starting work with them was on a totally different subject than what we would have them work on. So it would show you the quality kind of the reporting, but not really the meat of what they would do if they came in to Glynn. So just wanted to give you a quick update that we didn't just drop it off the plate, but we also didn't want to rush it and just make you feel like it was something that we, felt like was kind of do or die. So I don't know if y'all want to add anything to that. So.
I definitely agree with Dr. Whitehead. We definitely need to look at what's going on in our school and the instructional programs that we have. You all would be amazed at the number of different programs each school has encumbered in isolation or individually, and trying to wrap our heads around that alone has been exhaustive. So I can only imagine then trying to determine return on investment when you have so many different variables to consider. So we do want to include that in what we report out, just the number of different programs by content area that schools utilize for what we do here. So hopefully we can revisit this for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Deppenhart with a report from GICA. And Ms. Peacock has joined him in case you guys have questions for her.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is a presentation that I gave to the GICA board back at our December meeting, and then along with some additions requested by Dr. Spence, he asked myself and Ms. Peacock to come here and do this presentation to you kind of as a state of GICA, if you will, to see where we are in terms of enrollment, our testing pass rates, as well as our class pass rates. Slide if you would. So first with enrollment, our enrollment numbers are back up from where they were prior to the pandemic. For the fall semester, we ended up with 524 students. We did have 8 from McIntosh County Academy included in that number, as well as our first homeschool student that we've enrolled here at GICA. Our numbers are fairly similar in the spring. Our spring numbers are usually a little off from the fall. We have 483 coming into this semester. That is fluid day by day right now as we drop and add various students. We've increased our McIntosh numbers to 16 students. We do have 1 homeschool student. It's the same one from first semester, as well as our first student from Heritage Christian, who has now joined us at GICA in the construction pathway. So right now, as it stands, our total for the school year is 1,007, which is up from, as you see it below, 824 from last school year. So we've increased our numbers by almost 200 students and are back up to where we were in the 18-19, 19-20 school years prior to the COVID outbreak. I think a lot of that decrease last year was students going over to distance learning, but with those numbers now being down, we have a lot more students back in the classroom. Slide. Now, something Ms. Peacock and I started heavily last year working with our partners through Coastal Pines Technical College was increasing the dual enrollment opportunities out there at GICA. Many of the GICA courses that we offer are actually already have been aligned with the TCSG courses through Georgia Department of Education. So those courses can be offered as dual enrollment courses as long as our instructor meets the technical college's credentialing requirements. So last year we started that in healthcare and culinary in the spring, and we got 53 students in GICA classes dual enrollment credit. Continuing that into this last semester in the fall, we added welding and construction and had a total of 56 students. This morning I actually went around with the Coastal Pines personnel passing out the forms, and right now it looks like we're in the neighborhood of about 60, maybe 65 students that we might get dual enrollment out there at GICA this semester. Now, that's in addition to any Glynn County students that might take courses on their own through Coastal Pines Technical College. These are ones that are purely taking classes in GICA classrooms with Glynn County Schools teachers. And overall, the student gets dual enrollment credit for it, and then, you know, of course, the college gets their benefit of their increased enrollment, as well as there's a stipend that's paid back to Glynn County Schools for our instructors' time, because it is technically a dual enrollment course. So it's a win-win for all parties involved. Moving on to EOPA pass rates. We just finished our EOPA pass in December. We did hit a new record for the end of pathway test. We had a 73.5% EOPA pass rate with a total of 78 students passing the EOPA. Over the last 2 years, if you look below it, like 1920 and 2021, we've consistently been about 72%. There's several things that we've been doing over the last 2-3 school years that we think have helped bring these rates up, because 3 years ago, back in 18-19, we were sitting at about 65.4%. Every year, Ms. Peacock and I require every CTAE teacher at GICA to do EOPA crosswalks for all their tested classes. We've also increased the use of study guides, and we've brought in after-school tutoring using our COVID dollars this school year. And I think all of that combined has contributed us to keeping our rates high. The Georgia average, as you see there, is about 65.5. So we're consistently staying above that, and we're growing. Now, usually we have about 200 students per year pass the EOPA. 1920 was different because we only had one semester. We didn't get to test in that second semester. This year, we expect that number to grow up exponentially. We only had 78 first semester. However, out of our students that are here this semester, 250 of them roughly are in advanced courses. So if we hold true in that 70 percentile range, we should exceed about 240, 250 EOPA pathway completers for the year. So that'll be our highest yet. Slide. A couple of teachers that I want to bring to your attention. We did have 4 teachers that achieved 100% pass rate this last semester. Ms. Stalvey, who's been with us for several years. However, this is her first time teaching advanced courses, specifically forestry. Mr. Alston, who is a brand new teacher. He's fresh out of college this year. He is a GICA and a Brunswick High alum. He achieved 100% in ag leadership. Ms. Meredith, who is our teacher of the year, achieved 100% in culinary arts. And Mr. McDowell had 100% pass in the advanced automotive services. Slide. One other teacher I want to bring to your attention is the most improved from EOPAs is Ms. Jurgen. Over the last 2 years, she's worked heavily to get crosswalks and curriculum built for the exercise physiology test. Historically, that is somewhere where we have done very poorly at GICA. For example, last year, we had a 12.5% pass rate. And we were happy because that was the first time we actually had a student pass that particular test. This year, although it's still lower than most of the pathways, she achieved a 54.5% with just over half of her students, 6 out of 11, passing that test, with an average score increase of almost 14 points. That's including the students that didn't pass. So even the ones that didn't make it still improved. So I think she's really locked in a process on that test, and I expect that to go forward. So while it is a lower percentile, that is definitely something I want to bring to your attention as an improvement out there at GICA. Slide, please. Now, somewhere where we are a little lower this last semester is our overall pass rate. For the past 3 years while I've been principal out there at GICA, we've maintained somewhere between a 90 and 95% pass rate with students passing both of their GICA courses. This semester we have dropped off a little bit. We're down to about 86. Now, while that's still a fairly high, students passing all of their courses, it's a little lower than where we want to be. I think a lot of what that is this fall we had a lot more introductory students than we did advanced students. And in fact, out of our failures, we had 72 students at GICA that failed at least one course. 50% of them were ninth graders. And about 60% of those also failed the courses at their base high school. So it's a population of first-time students, first-time high school students that I think are struggling to make the transition. Our 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students fared much better. And with us having many more advanced students in the spring, I'm confident for the year we'll have that number right back up in the 90th percentile. Slide. A couple of things Dr. Spence also wanted us to highlight to you was some additions that we've made out there to GICA this year. One thing we're working on is the landscaping pathway. The first step of that is getting students qualified in the horticulture and floriculture. We have 15 students this semester in that class. This is the first time we've offered it in quite some time, and we're hoping to grow that out over the next several years. We had plenty of introductory students, so next year there'll be more students that qualify to take the advanced classes. These are just the ones that will complete the horticulture this semester. Additionally, we increased or added the cybersecurity pathway. In the fall, we only offered it as introductory sections. We didn't have any students that yet qualified to take the advanced. And we had 44 introductory students take those courses with Dr. Lewis. Right now, coming into the spring, in the morning, we're doing 12 advanced students, which is low, but it is the first time it's been offered. And we have 21 intro students in the afternoon. Now, with both of these pathways, the decision to add them was done late in the second half of last school year. So by the time myself and Ms. Peacock and Dr. Spence made the decision that we were going to go this direction, the base high schools had already done their course requests. So these sections weren't even available for students to want to sign up for. So a lot of what's in these are ones that we went out and found and recruited and brought them in. So this year, with enrollment coming up, these are on the new sign-up sheets for next school year, so I do expect these numbers to go up greatly. Additionally, something else that's really exciting that we're bringing in at GICA here in about a week is what's called a Pbis lab. It's something that we've worked with Dr. McKinnon in the SPED department. So the Pbis lab is a practical assessment exploration system. It's designed for special education students that wouldn't normally participate in a normal pathway. To come in, they're going to be brought in from their base high schools, and they will work in a variety of employability skills exercises. They actually come into the room, they clock in for their session, they will have a job sheet that they pull down for the day and complete their tasks and get their sign-offs, and then clock out. And these students will rotate in from both base high schools with the help of Dr. McKinnon and Dr. Hickson. So. That is all the information I have for you this evening, and subject to your questions.
What you just talked about, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. I can't remember what you called the program, but.
The Pbis lab, ma'am?
Yes. Do you coordinate that with the REACH program? Because I know they do some of that type job training skill for the older level kids.
It's for all the severe, it's going to be with the Access Classrooms and the REACH program. It's being run through the SPED program. We are just facilitating it happening.
It's the REACH program is after they finish their high school.
Right.
So this
Yeah.
will be the high school and probably the REACH program too. So.
Right. That's what I was curious, if we were going to kind of make it into a streamlined program all the way through to REACH, because that's one of their goals too, is the employability skills.
Yeah. And there is actually, and this is something we want to add on with that, there is actually a pathway now that is designed to do nothing but and teach employability skills. And it got approved about 1.5 years ago by the Georgia Department of Education, and Dr. McKinnon has a teacher in mind that, working off of this Pbis lab, we may be able to start teaching the first sections of that class as well out there at GICA.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember when I was on the GICA board 8 years ago, the Eopa results were dismal.
Yes, sir.
They were 20%, maybe. That was a good year. To go up to, what, 74?
73.5, yes, sir.
73.5 is a tremendous task, and y'all need to be congratulated for that.
Thank you.
That is, That is great, because that's what the school was built for our community, for these students that have completed a pathway to have some sort of certificate or some sort of skill coming out to become employed right out of high school. So I'm glad to see that continuing, and that Pbis lab, that's just brings a smile to my face.
I think it'll open up GICA to an even greater population of students.
Yes, sir. What is the maximum capacity for students now, could you say?
If I were to add up how I break out the master schedule and I were to fill every seat in the building over the course of the year, approximately 1,400.
Okay, so 700 per semester.
700 per semester.
Okay.
That's assuming every seat in every class
Right.
based off of what I consider to be the capacity of those classes.
Yeah, but personnel-wise, we would need.
We're just over 1,000 now.
Right.
So, and you know, it goes up and down. Some semesters, this class may have a lot, then we'll have a semester or two where it's low. An example of that would be collision. Right now, collision repair is low. Hopefully, we got a new instructor, we're working to build that back.
So there's room to grow also.
Yes, sir,
So that's
there is,
great.
absolutely.
Is there any, and I know it's just a kind of a one semester trend, but what you were talking about as far as the pass rate and the freshmen coming in, is there any consideration to looking at a way to help them with their transition? Have y'all talked about that? Maybe you've just identified this, so you're not even down.
Yeah,
that far
I mean,
down the
it's
road.
hard to tell if it's a true trend with one semester worth of
Right.
data.
Oh, it's a
But-
true trend.
yeah.
Freshmen are
Yeah,
75% of the failures in a high school, so it's a very true trend.
It's just the first time we've experienced it. We've noticed the deficiency for some time, though. You know, we've received students in that cannot read a roll or they cannot, they can't measure, for example, with tell, you know, 2 half cups make a cup. Those basic types of things. It's difficult because my teachers are CTAE teachers. My teachers are designed to teach specific pathways. They're not math teachers, they're not English teachers. There's some things we can do to help, but really that is more of a base high school, you know, responsibility. We'll do what we can, we're partners with them, but academic deficiencies is something that it's hard for us to fix on our side.
How is that related back to the base high schools? Do y'all talk about stuff like that, or do we have some type of collaboration to where we can make sure that they understand what the weaknesses are, or the
Yes, sir.
challenges are?
Both Lori and I work directly with the administrators at the base high school as well as the counselors and registrars. We have constant dialogue with the base high schools over the last 3 years.
Just recently, ninth graders have started attending within the last 2-3 years. Maybe?
It's been more than 3 years. There's always been ninth graders in my time.
Okay,
I can't say how far back before.
I didn't let them go when I was at Glynn Academy,
right,
and then when I
Yeah.
moved to Brunswick, they were allowed to go.
okay.
But I never let freshmen go when I was at Glynn.
Are
Yeah,
there-
we-
I didn't think they were ready.
Has there been an uptick in the number of ninth graders?
This year, I think so, yes, sir.
Yeah. Most schools are letting them go now.
And we allow them in all pathways with the exception of healthcare, that's because of the rigor of that coursework. And to be honest, I do have some teachers that wish we didn't allow the freshmen out there, but at the same time, you know, it takes several years to complete some of these pathways.
Right.
If we did not allow the freshmen out there, our enrollment would crash.
But not only that,
They
I
are a
think-
necessity.
I think that it's a good idea just from the standpoint of kids, you know, that are teeter-tottering on the aspect of bailing out of academics. It gives them an opportunity to realize that there's another option as a freshman, you know, because I guess on average about your sophomore year is when you turn 16 so that you could, I guess, legally quit school, you know, or whatnot. So to me, it gives them, you have some of those students that, you know, they know they're not gonna continue on with that type of academics as far as the schooling part of it, you know, and obviously we have to have their curriculum achieved in order to graduate, but my point is that it gives them an early start to realize that, hey, rather than going straight out and quitting school and working, I can start on this pathway, you know, and start in that direction and learning a trade or even a skill as far as nursing or whatever else that they may, it just gives them more options. I think as at that age, the more options they have, the better off we are at catching them, and keeping them here, keeping them in school.
Well, across Georgia, I mean, the statistics show that a student that completes a CTE pathway has a graduation rate of what, 97, 98%? 98% last year. So that is a proven trend statewide. So students that do participate in coursework like GICA have a much higher success rate.
During this normal school day, 7 to 3 or whatever, are there any Coastal Pines students on campus, directly on GICA's campus?
Yes, sir, there are.
There are.
And it's inconsistent. It's a hit or miss. During the school day, we do have adult students that are in the building participating typically in both the welding program, the industrial maintenance program, and their adult education GED program. Those courses also run in the evening. It just depends on the day of the week. We used to have some in the HVAC program, but that hasn't happened in a semester or two. But it's not many. It's maybe 20 to 30 Coastal Pines true adult students.
Right.
They also do run a couple dual enrollment pure, which are just high school students, like cosmetology, for example, or criminal justice. Those happen from semester to semester, and that'll be a population of about 15 to 20 students that are all high school age students doing dual enrollment.
And the dual enrollment's taught on our campus, and we've been talking with Coastal Plains. I remember having the conversation a couple years ago. So they supply the teacher, right, and they come to our school, and they teach at our school, and we basically hire the teacher, and they reimburse us. The state reimburses us for the salary. Is that correct?
Sort of, yes, sir. So what we do a bit of both there at GICA. So we are required under our performance contract with the state, our charter, that we have to participate and provide opportunities to the technical college to use our facility. So Glynn County Schools actually leases classrooms to the technical college that the technical college system then pays a fee to the school board for that usage. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect is they are actually credentialing my teachers, which are Glynn County School employees, to offer dual enrollment classes during the normal school day. When that happens, the school district is then reimbursed what that teacher would normally be paid as an adjunct instructor, as well as a supplies fee for that course.
Sounds like you're doing well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Is there, what is the goal, or what is the, our challenges of getting more students out there? I mean, I know there's plenty of challenges, but I know at one time, I guess our core classes were the problem of trying to get kids for half a day out there as opposed to.
Honestly, sir, there is no silver bullet. There's a lot of things I could point to. The fact that we have to bring them for a half day at a time is problematic. Students that are involved in things like band, certain athletics, certain AP classes, it makes it challenging to get that half day worked out in their schedule. The distance between GIC and the base high schools doesn't make it practical to go to a one-class rotation. If someone could figure out a rotation, I'd actually be in favor of it. But I think it would be challenging. A few other things I think that are issues is, we get a lot of kids out there in the intro level. We get more intro level than we do the advanced. I think recruitment is part of it, and that's something we've been working, trying to get the kids interested in the right pathways. The problem is a child gets scheduled for a pathway they're not interested in, because everyone that goes to GICA doesn't pick those classes. They're picked by their counselors at their base high school. Juniors, seniors, they get to pick a lot of their classes. 9th and 10th, by and large, get put in a lot of those classes. Some students find they like it and they return for the advanced. Others don't come back. That's why if you look at my rosters on any given time, I'd say my intro classes are about 30% fuller than my advanced classes, just because I don't retain all of those students to come over. But we've worked heavily with the base high schools to recruit over the last 3 years. I think that's how we got our numbers back up to where they are. We're getting ready to have a very large GICA open house on the 20th of January, where we're inviting all 4 of the middle schools, both base high schools, as well as Heritage Christian and McIntosh Academy. So we're hoping to have a tremendous turnout there. That's really going to pay off on our numbers for next year and going forward.
And you have a big event coming up in May?
We
March?
have, for the foundation,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have a large fundraiser on May 19th called Evening with Our Stars.
That will be held off-site, though. We won't be
Right,
doing that.
off-site,
Okay,
yeah.
At
yes,
Sea
sir.
Palms.
Okay. Speak out real quick. Could you speak to the, our collaboration with, do we still have a lot of involvement with the sponsors or the actual businesses that are involved with the actual programs?
We do have a number of the businesses that continue to be real involved, which is Seafood and King and Prince are probably our champion partners. We have, the hospital is also a partner of ours, as well as IAP. We have some other sponsors that are donors, probably giving to the foundation $1,000 or less that are still involved, but there's always room to increase our sponsorships right now.
So, but you still see a high level of involvement from the business community?
If I'm being honest, and I don't have anything to compare it to because
Right.
I've only been here 16 months, so I can only, think about what it was probably like when GICA was first started. I think there's lots of room for growth to have more business and industry involved in GICA. Whether that's having them sponsoring some of our programs, our pathways, providing more of their staff as maybe team teachers with our staff, but I definitely think that's an area that we need to improve on.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Great night.
Go to good work.
I'm going to bring Mr. Blackerby in here, talk about our facilities.
Hey.
Administrator listed, Glynn Academy, PE edition, things are moving along on schedule there. I don't know if you've ridden by there, but over the holidays, we got most of the masonry walls up around the actual gym itself. So about to get it closed in, so we don't have to worry about weather anymore. As we finish the final touches on that, not this weekend, but next weekend, we'll put all the spray foam insulation in, and then we'll essentially be working on the inside for the next few months, but everything's going well there. The East Plus 4 projects, Golden Isles Elementary, the 500 wing, which was the first wing we started working on. We've they're essentially complete. We've got the floors installed, all the ceilings, everything's ready to go. Talked with technology at our meeting on Wednesday, and they're going to be in the next week or so get the all clear to start hanging the interactive boards and such in there, and all that'll be left is the cleaning of and the repolishing of the terrazzo in the hallway. So, and the next wing, which is the 200 wing, floors are going down in there, painting's complete, and the painters have already moved to the 300 wing. So we're rolling along pretty good there. The AC units, as with most of the equipment, is the hold up there, and at Needwood, and Oglethorpe, as a matter of fact. We had a December 18th ship date, which has now got pushed back to January 24th. So we're hoping on January 24th we get those, but it's not slowing work down yet because we have everything in place. All the electrical's done, duct work's done. We're just waiting on those units. So at Needwood, rolling into that one.
Real quick, Mike.
Yeah.
Can you back up to Golden Isles? What's our new transfer date? We're just gonna.
Wait till the end of the year.
Oh, the end of the year,
So we're
yeah.
gonna do it in the
Summer,
summer.
that
School-
the teachers kind of want to just stay and just wait.
It makes
till the end.
sense, but we'll be able. You don't see any issues as far as fall of 22?
We don't.
Getting back over there?
We don't at all. We anticipate, honestly, by, probably mid-May, being in pretty good shape, which I think I mentioned it at the last meeting, that furniture is probably next on the list to do that. I've already met with Ms. Renee, the principal, and we've identified all the classroom furniture, and in fact, tomorrow, one of my tasks is to compile that list and break it down so we can get price quotes on that and get that on the way. But I don't see any issues with us getting back in that building. And like I said last time, we've saved all the old furniture just in case that doesn't come. But we should be in good shape there.
Thank you, sir.
And last month, y'all had approved the kitchen equipment and such as that. We've already got the ball rolling on submitting the orders for those. Right now, the manufacturer told us there's no issue with getting that in. That's probably going to be a June installation, but we still should be in good shape there. At Needwood, we're on the first, the wing we started there. Right now, ceilings are in. We're working on the floors. All the painting's done. The holdup there is just that January 24th ship date on the condensers. We already have all the air handlers are already installed. All the ductwork's installed. We just have the condensers outside before we pull the barred units off the exterior of the building. We still have the barred units running. We're not going to pull those down until the last minute, but that's what we're waiting on there. Oglethorpe Point, the day before we got out for the holidays, we shifted the classes. The last Friday they were in school, they were in their new classrooms there, and over the holidays, we completely demoed the other side of the hallway. And at this point, the painters should finish up by lunchtime tomorrow, and we'll be ready to put ceiling grid in, which we were going to try to do this weekend, but we've decided to hold off until Monday because we have a couple of ductwork issues we want to make sure before we cover them up that we get taken care of. But things are moving along well there. The air handler, or the condensers and all the air handlers are not there, but it's not an issue as far as just moving back in because everything else is up and running, and all the equipment to be installed is either outside or in the mezzanine, so we're in good shape there. And St. Simon's Elementary, the steel should start going up. Met with them today on January 10th. Is the date that the steel crew will be on site. They've already started deliveries, and we're looking at through the next month, the steel work will be taking place as well as the second floor decking. At the same time, we're going to, as they finish the section of steel, we're going to go ahead and put the decking down so we can keep moving there. At this time, don't see any major holdups there. As opposed to the renovations, which we kind of jumped into very quickly and did not have everything on site. St. Simon's, we've had a little more time the way the phasing is, to prepare and get things on the way. So we're in pretty good shape there right now.
The Altima closeout, how are we?
We are currently working through the punch list. Larry Roundtree, who is with John Tootin again now, and we met this morning on that because we had gotten with Bryson McDonald yesterday and was to get a progress. We did not hear back today, but we're trying to get him to sign off on the punch list items, and then we're going to do an additional walkthrough after that because kind of the way we occupied the building in the middle of the construction, we want to make sure nothing was left done. But I mean, they have had a considerable amount of things on the punch list to complete, but we want to give them the opportunity. We think they probably are pretty close now, and then we're actually going to do a second punch list after that. The metal on the outside, there's still a few areas of that. It's just basically been as it arrives, it gets installed. That's a supply chain issue. But interior of the building, we're in pretty good shape.
So the railings and all that stuff is finally installed and put in as far as didn't we have an outside, or was that done prior to them moving in the railings?
Railings.
You talking about the metal on the outside?
I think so.
That's what he's talking
No, we've got it all around the front. There's some parts where it connects into the wings on the back that's still not done. It's the metal flashing around the outside, the cosmetic metal is basically what it is.
Now, the inside is,
Yeah.
it's just really nice.
So you're thinking another month, maybe?
Before we finally just close the
Close it
books
out,
on
take
that.
off the-
Yeah, I'm hoping that, tomorrow or first of next week that Bryce and McDonald get back with us and say they are complete with those punch list items, and immediately then Larry Roundtree and I will go back through the building one more time, and I feel like we'll be close. I want to make sure, due to this lingering work on the metal and the roof, that we do a thorough job of looking over that and make sure we are weather tested on that roof before we completely close out on it.
Right.
And going to the good.
Yeah, good report. That's just a summary of the projects that we've just gone through. Everything, as far as where we stand is just as I just said it. The only thing left on that first page there is the performing arts, which I'm not sure where we stand on that. We haven't done anything with that.
We stand on, we're going to write them checks when they send us bills.
If you move down to page 5, yeah, you can see the receipts for the month of December is hovering around that 2.5 million mark, which has been pretty consistent. So we're kind of anticipating that's where it's going to stay. And the next slide is comparison-wise, where we stand there. Any
questions on the
or
good
anything
report?
you want to look at additionally there? There is, I believe Dr. Spence was part of a conversation with Steve Salmon. Steve and I talked about it again yesterday, and he had looked up the law. It does appear that, we're going to hit the 112 million mark well ahead of the goal. If we hit it in the first month of the quarter, we still get to collect for the second and third month. And if we hit it in the second month, we get to collect for the third month. So, we're going to hit it early. There's a 1 in 3 chance that we're going to get to go a little bit further. So, odds are in our favor that we might get an extra month or two on there.
33% chance.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Waters, you want to come join him? All right, we're going to, I'll let y'all go ahead.
Yeah, drop down to C.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll do this at the end.
So we advertised and collected bids for turfing the stadium field as well as the Brunswick High Practice Field, the field that's inside of the track area, and the Glynn Academy Practice Field. That's essentially the west end of the practice area out there that's adjacent to the field house. And in doing that, you can scroll up if you will a little bit. Further up. There we go. We received responses from 3 different companies: Field Turf, Hellas, and United Ground Maintenance Services. Of those, while it was not the lowest overall bid, I believe there's a bid tab in there somewhere as well. Field Turf out of Calhoun, Georgia, met all the specifications, as well as they provide some other parts of the project that we felt like were a little more advantageous to go with. In looking at their bid, the number one thing that we looked at was the ability to meet the timeline. And Field Turf is the only one that presented a project schedule that enabled us to meet the timeline as far as a summer installation. The other 2, well, one didn't provide a timeline, and the other timeline pushed us into next fall before they would even get halfway through with the work. So we They didn't get merits for that. One other area was in the specifications, we asked for a cool play material that would drop the temperature of the playing surface by 35 degrees. Mr. Waters can speak a little bit more on that in a minute, but part of the concerns in South Georgia is when you get the temperature and the wet bulb temperature and the overall temperature get to a certain point, you can't play or practice. The cool play enables you to have less of a concern with that, and field turf was the only one that provided that level. Hellas has a option that would drop it 20 degrees, but you have to water it. And one thing we're trying to get away from is irrigation and the maintenance cost on that. And by watering it, you've still got the watering cost, but at the same time, it also lowers your overall temperature, but raises your wet bulb temperature, so you get back into the same issue as far as GHSA requirements. In addition, field turf, we asked for a 10-year warranty. Just in our research and talking with other people who have turf, it's that 10 to 12 year mark where you start having any issues. And field turf is the only one that provides the 10-year warranty. United Ground Services also quoted the field turf product, but of course they had to put their markup in there to be able to install it. But Hellas only provided an 8-year warranty, and that 9th and 10th year are the 2 years that you're going to get your money back on that warranty if you had an issue there. And in addition to that, field turf guarantees a 48-hour response to have workers on site if you do have any type of an issue. Hellas does not guarantee anything, and they're based out of Texas, so my assumption is it'd probably take them longer than 48 hours to get a crew here, although they didn't specify that. Field turf also has, in the last 3 years, they've had, didn't do a good count, but close to 250 to 300 installations in the state of Georgia alone. That includes Mercedes-Benz Stadium, University of Georgia Field, as well as hundreds of high schools. So all of those things kind of led us to, although field turf has the higher cost, it seems to be the best value overall, especially when you factor in the warranty and the other factors. From a budgetary standpoint, this would recommendation would be for this to come out of eSplosh 3, which in eSplosh 3, when we do have ample funds to take care of this in the balance from some of our remaining projects that have already been closed out, as well as in the money set aside just for renovations, which is around $6 million there.
Why is it more expensive to turf the Brunswick High School practice field versus the stadium?
The concern, the Brunswick High campus, and the entire campus is covered with the geothermal wells. Okay. In conversations with, as recently as today, with folks who know a whole lot more about geothermal than I do, the concern is that they may damage the lines run, because the field is actually covered with hundreds of well points out there. They're all 4 feet under the surface, supposedly. There's a fear there. Included in that is a 20% contingency that we control if they don't use it. After, no matter which one of these, they're going to have to do a survey, a geotechnical survey of the area anyway. At that point, the anticipation is that the cost would be lowered at that point. We know it's going to be lowered by 20% because that's what we control. Okay. Unless there's some kind of catastrophic damage. Since they have all done their bids, I have had conversations with some of the installers of the geothermal. I don't see any concerns with it, just after what I've learned in the last few days as far as them hitting anything, and I've shared that with some of the installers and kind of eased their mind about it, but that's why the cost is more. I honestly believe that at Glynn Academy, they're going to hit more things than they are at Brunswick High. I don't think that.
A manhole cover.
There's
a
lot of things. There's a lot of things crisscrossing that field.
So, and Mike and I noticed just adding on to
Yeah.
that, Field Turf's been here 3 times. The other company's only been here about an hour. And they've really spent a lot of time at Brunswick High, especially because they are very concerned about going under that and
Yeah.
that geothermal. There's just a lot that they have to account for, and we feel like they put the price up to that at Brunswick High just to cover in case there is an issue there with the geothermal that they're not expecting.
Field Turf actually sent some of their engineers down to Walton Field and to do some poking and prodding to see, to make sure. But I feel like in the end, and I shared this with all 3 of them, that at this point, there's really no concerns that I have that they're going to hit anything. But
So there's 20% still on the table that we control.
Just for the BHS field?
nope, there's 20% in all of them.
Oh, all of it.
So off of that 3.6.
And the reason for that particular, at the stadium, I don't have a whole lot of concerns because I think that we probably have a pretty good idea of what's there under the stadium. Glynn Academy, I have concern. I have the as-built of everything that's out there, but I mean, we know that Glen Middle was sitting right there adjacent to it for years, and I mean, and the school's been there for so long. There are a lot of abandoned lines there, and so that was kind of where the 20%, from my standpoint, started from. Was I wanted to have that there in case there was something we had not disclosed to them that they hit and we needed to rectify. So, but after looking at it again at Glynn Academy, I think more what they're going to hit is scrap metal and old concrete.
How will they work scheduling around if they're planning on summer install with the football practice schedule?
Steve has actually done a lot of work on that already to get that.
Yeah, so and this was part of the bid process that they had to meet, and Field Turf was the only one to meet it, but we would start at Glynn Academy and Brunswick High in May, and they'll start at the stadium the Monday after graduation. It's a 75-day turnaround per field. Glynn Academy has to be done by July 15th. No excuses or anything, due to the fact there's only one field at Glynn Academy, so we're gonna have to bus them to Lanier Field or somewhere while the turf's being built, but, so they'll be able to come back, and then Brunswick High and the stadium will be done August 15th, which is the drop dead date, and, Brunswick will still have 2 fields to practice on while they're building the turf on the track field. They'll just have to share those 2 fields between football and the band, but, we've been able to work it around soccer and football, and it's going to work out. It's just going to be, the coaches are going to have to work a little bit and be a little creative. But
well, I know Glynn Academy had to do that this summer.
we bust them over to Lanier
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So
they're
and the problem with Glynn Academy, and everybody knows this, is we just can't grow grass there. You got the oak tree in that one spot, but you've got football, you've got soccer, you've got ROTC, you've got band, you've got everybody that practices on an 80-yard field by 160 feet wide, and it just gets beat up. And we try to close that field down in May and June just to grow grass, but it gets chopped up once football gets back on it. So, that field is, we want to get that done so we can get them practicing on it as quick as possible. And Brunswick will be fine, and I've met with both coaches, and they're fine with the schedule. So,
So Field Turf will be doing all 3 of them at the same time?
yeah, so pretty much, especially in May and June, or June, they'll be working on all 3 at the same time. They have 232 high schools currently in the state of Georgia, and there's only like 400 that actually participate in football. So Field Turf's kind of got a good reputation in the state of Georgia, especially on providing the safest, most consistent field to play on.
And all 3 of the quotes for the 3 different companies were all contingent. This is what they all wrote into it. It was contingent upon them getting all 3 of them. In other words, they wanted to do all 3 or none, because once they mobilize and get here, they want to go into them all.
And we're very well aware of the cost difference. I mean, so we've done a lot of research and a lot of study, just to try to, the warranty itself, the 2-year warranty, pretty much covers the cost difference. I mean, if you put a value on a 2-year warranty, it's going to be about close to $650,000. Hellas also has numerous pending litigation cases
throughout the country. Field turf has no pending litigation. Through a study done by American Journal of Sports Medicine, field turf is by far the safest for lower extremity injuries and concussion injuries. You've heard nightmares about field turf, and it's advanced a lot, but at the end of the day, there's fields like Camden used to have, which basically, if you fell, it was like falling on your driveway. This field is very soft, and it's great. It performs the best for your ankles, ACLs, MCLs, knees, hips, and concussion injuries. So just putting all that in, along with, there's a significant difference in the drainage of both. I can get 4 inches of rain in an hour, and I can play on it 5 minutes later, whereas the other one, if we get rain, the pellets underneath are probably going to clog the drains. Field turf has it's amazing the way they drain their field. So it's just the science behind it and everything is what led to us going with field turf, despite the cost
Pay a little bit
difference.
more, but you're getting a better product and you're getting a better warranty. So, I mean.
I feel so. And I say it all the time. I don't feel like you can put a price on a kid's safety. And there's no doubt in Mike's mind and my mind, we're going with the safest product.
Well, also included in that is the, like you said, on the temperature
Yeah.
rating situation too.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. I know Camden, that field down there didn't have it.
Oh my gosh.
The one that was installed as I left, that.
Right, the old one's what I'm
The
saying.
new one is now included.
Yeah.
It's actually neither one of these brands, but.
You would burn your shoes
Yep.
on that field
Yeah.
down there.
The 35 degree, so this field, it'll be 35 degrees cooler than the outside temperature and within 10 degrees of grass temperature at all times, with no water at all needed.
One other advantage to field turf is, not to get overly technical with the way they do their seams. It's an overlapping way, and there's no exposed threading on the seams. What you're going to find with turf as the field ages is the seams start to separate, and that's what starts causing the issue. And the difference in the 8 and 10-year warranty takes care of some of that, but the way that field turf does it, it almost ensures that your seams are not going to completely separate. Coming from an area where I had to maintain an artificial turf field at lunchtime on Fridays for the last 3 or 4 years, I was personally out there with a glue gun, gluing seams back down before kickoff. So the way field turf does it is a little different construction that the others do not offer.
What do they say? I mean, assume it's like anything, carpet in a house. I mean, eventually you have to replace it. So we're talking 10 years, 20 years? I know it depends on play, but
You're probably looking at year 12 is probably when you start planning for it. And at that point, your numbers are not going to be equivalent to these because you're not replacing all the drainage, you're not
Sure.
replacing, you're just replacing basically
Cover,
carpet on top,
Just the cover.
which is, I'll
The,
throw a number out there, I'll say probably a third of the cost for a replacement.
Fulton County, they do all the turf in Fulton, and they're in year 9, and they're hoping to replace it in year 12. They're starting to plan for year 12 now. They started making money between years 7 and 8 as far as return on investment, with no mowing, no painting lines, no chalk, no water on the field, all that good stuff.
Well, that was gonna be my question, because if you're looking at 12 years, you're about 300,000 a year. I mean.
Yeah,
what
he
do
told me,
What does it cost to maintain what we have?
you know, at year 8, he was in the plus as far as the man hours are where you save a lot of money. 'Cause I know at our field, we have 6 guys assigned to it pretty much during football season. So the labor hours there, plus there's no telling how much we spend on water. The research I did said for a normal football field, you spend 3 million gallons of water per game trying to get the field in shape, which is probably about right. There's a lot of water that pumps on those fields that we will save there.
I don't mean to be like, there's a well out there, right? Is there a well at the stadium?
It's over,
Yes.
right by my building, right? Yep.
So you don't have like but I don't want you to miss, I mean, there's not like a joint water sewer cost to what we do out there, right?
Shouldn't.
No. it-
Right, so,
it's
so I
just a
mean,
maintained-
like when you have a well that irrigates your yard, the reason you have a well is
Right.
because you don't pay for water.
That's right.
You don't pay for sewer, so you have to pay the power to run it, but it's not, I mean,
It's not coming.
there's not that much cost savings in the water.
I know.
So I know you didn't say that, I just want everybody to be clear that
Right.
that sounds like a lot of water, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, joint will still be, but it's not that much money, you know?
Yeah.
And it's good for the environment, whatever you want to call it, but you do have to pay the power to run the well, of course, but there's not that much savings in quote unquote
Your
water.
biggest savings is the man hours, which
Sure.
is very hard to calculate. I mean, we could probably at some point calculate that, but
Are there colleges or high schools, I mean, you mentioned some that they've worked with, anybody in particular that has this very product that we're looking at that you know of, that you've been to, or
Yes.
just like?
The biggest one I've
Football
been to is the indoor facility at Georgia. It's the
Okay.
exact same stuff we're putting here. I've been to others, but I've been on that field multiple times, and it's just it's real soft, real giving. A lot of schools, of course, the schools like Fulton that put theirs in 9 years ago, it was a different brand, so it's hard to compare those. The newest one they just did was Warner Robins, who has 4 high schools that all share that field, and they just put the exact same field in, and it's beautiful, and they love it.
But we're not really gonna wind up, I kind of look at it like the energy program. You're not gonna cut employees right now, right? You could talk about cost avoidance, meaning we would have spent this, but
Right.
we're gonna redirect that labor to other places.
correct.
Okay.
There's plenty of grounds work that needs to be done.
I get, I'm just, well, again, everybody's clear that we're not
No, you're
losing
exactly
20
right.
employees and you're saving
Right.
$600,000 a year in
That's
labor.
exactly right.
You're just avoiding that cost. You're moving it around somewhere
That's
else.
exactly right.
But we're also not hiring more to manage all these different, because we keep building more schools, more of this, and I mean, we've grown a lot in the past however many years, so I guess being able to redirect, you're still not adding employees.
Beyond the financial aspect, it frees your field up. You don't have to decide whether or not you're gonna have an event on it based on the fact that the field's not in shape. Most places that install turf, I mean, they're playing, game after game after game and don't worry about the condition of the field anymore, or unsafe playing conditions.
So is there, I mean, there's gotta be some kind of maintenance cost to these turf fields.
There's, included in the cost, we get a sweeper and a groomer for each field. And up until about 5 years, there's really, other than sweeping and grooming it, which is basically all it's doing is fluffing the fibers back up, periodically. And that's drug around with a lawnmower or a golf cart. I mean, which we already
It's kind of like a
have.
baseball drag.
The only other thing they can, field turf or any of these manufacturers, they offer what they call reconditioning, which is a minimal cost, $7,000-8,000 per field that they'll do every 5 years, where they but they're not doing anything other than coming in and sweeping and grooming, which is basically redistributing the pellets.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest wear and tear on a turf field is not a football game or a soccer game or anything. So it's band or any other event where they're kind of standing in one spot moving, and they're basically displacing the pellets. And that's really all you have to worry about. But when you come back across it with the sweeper and groomer, you redistribute the pellets, and that's good.
Are there any added revenue opportunities to
A
have
lot.
a field like this?
Well,
Yes.
we haven't
I might wanna hear about them.
Well, so if approved, even if no matter what we approve, next year, with the addition of our contract with Baker Sports, we are now heavily engaged in the border wars. We have commitments to have 7 football games in a 3-day period at Glynn County Stadium. You'll have to have turf to do that. The state of Georgia called me the week before Christmas break, and they want to bring all their all-star football games to Glynn County, which has never been south of Atlanta, which means it's going to be great for our community because we'll be bringing in 200-plus football players and their families, and all the games will be at Glynn County Stadium. I think when you look at things like graduation, you have no damage to a field. When you look at things like if we ever have a concert again, there's nothing you do there. It just gives you that flexibility to have more of a multi-purpose field that you never have to worry about damaging. So the board awards and the all-star games right now are the only thing, but there's also, you know, my hope is to invite the recreation teams out to play more middle school ball there. I just think with turf, there's so much I can do, and the revenue would not only be, the revenue will be the same with that, but concessions at the stadium, things like that, increase revenue too. So, but you know, the days of us, I think, having to use a middle school field or Lanier Field, there's so much AAU football now, besides rec football, and they need places to play. They can play on the turf, it won't damage it at all, and they have to pay a facility rental fee for that. So,
Is that the way it works for the, like the All-Stars and the?
yeah,
the
we just
awards, or
charge
is
them
that
our,
ticket sales?
we allow them to do their tickets, but we charge them a facility rental fee, and then they also charge for our staff to work it. So,
So any estimates as to what that would bring in over the life of these fields? I mean, percentage of the cost?
my
maybe?
guess is just in concessions alone next year, just for the additional football games, we're talking of possibly about 50,000 extra, just in concessions.
So then facility fees would be.
The
in
facility
addition.
fees would be on top of that, which for the stadium, I mean, we charge a lot right now for the stadium. It's because we have to prepare if they damage the grass, but, I mean, you're talking about if somebody rents the stadium for a day, it's gonna be a couple $1,000 extra. We charge, I mean, we charge Richmond Hill $8,000 to have graduation there. So, now a lot of that goes into staffing and SROs and things of that nature, but a lot of that can go back to athletics too. So,
Well, this funding's already here as well, as far as Pbis 3.
Pbis 3, we have, I've done the math on it, and I've actually confirmed with Steve Salmon, yeah, we have, we easily have the funding for it.
with this, not only the groomer and the sweeper, but they also provide new goalposts at every facility. And goalposts are very expensive. That comes with the product, but it's just kind of a cost that nobody thinks about. But our goalposts at the stadium were put in 1986, and they are, every time we have a good nor'easter or hurricane, they're laying on the field. So this will bring in new professional 30-foot goalposts that can be removed after any game, and I can have soccer goals up by the next morning. I mean, it's just so multi-purpose that it's great.
User friendly.
Yes, very.
Awesome. Move on to the lights.
Part of the request with this is lighting for the practice fields. With this, Musco Lighting is a preferred lighting, and they actually bid out through the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative. The price for both practice fields is $560,000, and it's a not to exceed $560,000. There's not necessarily contingency built in there, but we're anticipating that cost being lower than that. Same thing as with Brunswick High. The cost is padded a little bit just in case as they were digging the holes for the lights and installing the foundations for the poles, that nothing was damaged in those geothermal. But again, since they've come out and looked at it, we've had additional conversations, and we all feel like that that we're going to come in under that if we went with this. The Musco Lighting has a 25-year warranty, and it's monitored by Musco and electronically. They see an issue on their system before we know there's an issue, and they go ahead and address the issue without us sometimes even knowing about it. It's the same lighting system that's at the Wainwright complex, and seems to have worked well there.
And then the batting cages.
That's it. Batting
Yeah.
cages? Yeah. What Tom Berry want me to?
I can talk more. Give you a little break there. So we had two bids on the batting cages, one from Custom Netting in Marietta, one from Burbank Sports in Jacksonville. Very simply, Custom Netting did not meet all of our specs as far as the safety of the cages.
The spec, they did not have UV rated netting, which increases the longevity of the netting. Their poles, their
Poles.
supports were also, we spec 2-inch poles, and they were providing 1 5/8 poles.
And then there's 5 frames in Burbank and 4 frames in Custom. And if you've been in cages with 4 frames, the netting sags pretty badly, which is a safety issue. The 5th frame really kind of keeps the netting up. These will be high school batting cages with drop nets, so you can actually have batting cage. You can do BP on both sides of the cage with a net dropping in the middle. So they're very, very nice cages, especially for a middle school level. Our kids will benefit a lot from these cages.
This price does not include, we were going to put these on concrete pads. We don't have that price in there because the project wouldn't start until the spring, and May 2nd is the target date. We have to have that target date to guarantee the net prices in the cages and everything arrive on time. But at this point in time, no one is willing to give us a price on concrete for May.
Pretty smart.
And they'll want to guarantee
Can't
that price, or they'll guarantee a price, it just probably
You
wouldn't
wouldn't
want to pay
want
it.
And then moving on to cafeteria furniture.
New cafeteria furniture for Golden House. It is through Palmer Hamilton, the same group that provides the furniture for Altama. The price is $114,000. In doing this, some tables were added and the seating arrangement with work through Miss Daniel and the principal, Miss Renee. They developed a seating plan that will accomplish 2 things. One, if you've ever been to Golden House Cafeteria, you can't really see the stage for the serving line the way it's arranged. So this takes care of part of that issue, as well as it's going to spread the students out. As we know right now, social distancing is important, and I don't know that we're going to be out of that in the near future. So this gives the school more options as far as spreading the students out. It's a lot more smaller seating arrangements, but allows them to split the kids up a little bit in a little more social distance manner. And this would be East Plus 4 as part of the Golden House project.
And then the MOU rear easement.
We did get in pretty quick turnaround after the last meeting. We got the MOU from for the easement for the force main going to the sewer manhole. Mr. Lakin has reviewed it and has signed off in agreement that we're in good shape there. I've read through it. It's pretty standard as far as they're agreeing to not do any work on the property without us, or somebody approving the timeline of work and approving their access to the property. And they're also guaranteeing that they are going to repair any damage. One thing that was a little bit surprised me when I looked at the original plan, it's just a 4-inch line. I thought it was going to be, I believe in there somewhere it says a 4-inch force main line. I was assuming it would be something bigger than that. So, from my standpoint, I'm fine with moving forward with it. So I'll let y'all make the final decision and sign off if you agree.
I don't know anything about sewer tap-in or whatever we've got going on here, but does it in any way affect our facility's ability to?
No.
Okay.
No, it would not. And I think the only burden that's placed back on this is if we were to do anything to affect their sewer, we would have to inform them ahead of time.
Right, I saw that, okay.
But yeah, the scope of work includes installing a 4-inch force main. Yeah, that would not inhibit us at all as far as sewer. I don't know what I was anticipating, but I was not anticipating a 4-inch line.
And those
Wouldn't
smaller,
think so,
most
so-
irrigation main lines around facilities outside, I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
I
That's
don't,
a long way to run for
yeah,
4-inch sewer.
I'm not,
it's gonna be straight around the top, gonna be any manholes or taps or anything like that on the way from,
no,
You know what I
it
mean?
looks like it's pretty much coming straight across under the driveway, which they're going to,
Picture, don't we?
yeah, we got a picture, and they're gonna jet it, I guess the picture too. They're gonna jet it under the driveway, and then I think it's just got that one dog leg in it going straight to the manhole behind the cafeteria.
So bottom left picture.
It must be a heck of a lift station to pump it.
That far.
4
let me
inches.
come back next
I
year.
wouldn't
Ask
want
for permission to redo it.
I wouldn't want to stand on top of it, that's for sure.
Oh, look.
They don't flush any wipes now.
Exactly. So they've agreed to repair?
Yeah.
You know, the grass and everything else, I guess?
I believe it states in there,
They satisfied me completely.
I believe it said in there they will restore it to the
They said
To
it
the
would be
conditions.
the same or better than it
same or
was.
better.
Then that's something else.
We don't get a cookie for doing what you're supposed to do, but you know, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
it's good it's in there, but, you know, congratulations. You can put it back the way you had it. We're doing you a favor.
Anybody got any questions or
Maybe should we send them a thank you note?
comments?
No question.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. I do have one other thing, going back up to 5B. We have to discuss the vision and mission statement. We're going to keep that the same. It seems to be working. And so anybody have any questions about our keeping the vision and mission statement as is? No? All right. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Dr. Spence. I guess that'll take us into executive session. I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session for personnel, legal, land. Okay. Motion for executive session for personnel and legal.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Jurgen. Second by Mr. McDowell. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous at 7:28. Go back into open session.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Yergin,
Second.
second by Ms. Gibbons. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous at 7:51.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn on the floor by Dr. Yergin, second by Ms. Sams. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous at 7:51 also.
Bang, bang.